Chapter 1170. As soon as Yun Jian spoke, the bespectacled man fell into deep thought. Because the mysterious person had appeared much earlier than Lan Su coming out of the cave, the bespectacled man had to carefully recall the characteristics of the mysterious person. Hee hee. Do you think you're filming a mythical TV series? You're so mysterious, as if it's real. Those who don't know would think that you're acting. Seeing that Yun Jian had successfully attracted the attention of a circle of people, Lin Xiaochu remembered that she had been humiliated because Yun Jian didn't save her in time. Therefore, Lin Xiaochu angrily opened her mouth, trying to embarrass Yun Jian at this moment. When Lin Meiyan heard Lin Xiaochu's words, it was as if she had suddenly found a helper. So this girl also hated Yun Jian so much. After Lin Xiaochu finished speaking, Lin Meiyan agreed, "That's right. She's so mysterious. What other world? What? This is a lawful society. An era where science is advocated. We're not filming a TV series. Can you be more normal? Don't act like you know everything." Lin Meiyan and Lin Xiaochu, both of whom had the surname Lin, were like a family. Very quickly, they began to attack Yun Jian together. Yun Jian only slightly narrowed her eyes, but her eyes were fixed on the bespectacled man. She seemed to be waiting for the bespectacled man's reply. I remember now, that mysterious person didn't have a right pinky. At that time, he wrapped himself up tightly, but when he raised his hand, I saw that he didn't have a pinky on his right hand. The bespectacled man suddenly thought of this and quickly said to Yun Jian. After hearing this, Yun Jian and Ce looked at each other, then she curved her lips and said to the bespectacled man, "Thank you." After saying this, Yun Jian and the other four turned around and walked towards the cave. They completely ignored Lin Xiaochu and Lin Meiyan. "Hey, you're leaving just like that? You guys." Lin Meiyan saw that Yun Jian and the rest did not even look at her. Just as she was about to say something, Yun Jian and the rest had already arrived at the entrance of the cave. Then with Yun Jian taking the lead, the five of them quickly flashed into the cave, dodging the flying arrows almost instantly and disappearing from everyone's sight. The five people's nimble movements made everyone's eyes widen. They really went in. When Lin Meiyan saw Yun Jian and the other four enter the cave, the flying arrows began to move recklessly. She almost cried out in shock. Just from the frequency of the flying arrows, even the people standing in the same place could feel that it was impossible to pass through this cave, right? Lin Meiyan felt a deep fear. If it was him, even if he was being carried by Yun Jian, he would have been so scared that he wouldn't dare to move when he saw those mechanisms. Would he be pierced by thousands of arrows? Just thinking of this scene, Lin Meiyan shuddered violently. When the others saw this scene, their expressions also changed slightly. Even the bespectacled man took a deep breath, then opened his mouth in front of everyone's eyes and said, "I've been here for a long time, and all the people who tried to enter the cave before were all pierced by thousands of arrows." Those people were all pierced by at least 100 flying arrows, and even their corpses exploded in an instant. Those 5 young people are indeed capable. That skill, it's simply not something that a human should have. The bespectacled man's exclamation made Lin Meiyan and Lin Xiaochu's hair stand on end and tremble. Chapter 1171. At this moment, Ce was already holding Yun Jian's little hand as they passed through a long stretch of pitch-black stone tunnel. Then, a bright light flashed before their eyes. When they came back to their senses, they had already arrived at the Yulong continent. As they had been here before, this stretch of road was familiar to everyone. After exiting the stone tunnel and arriving at a brand new world, Lan Su said to everyone, "We're here. I can cast a spell to bring you back to the witch tribe directly. It'll be a little far from here." At this point, Lan Su paused, then turned to look at Ce, Adam and Mo Sin. "Before that, could I trouble your excellency to disguise yourself again?" At this point, Lan Su did not forget to explain. "Your excellency, you come from the deity continent that controls the life and death of all continents. In our hearts, you're a god. So if you appear, it might cause a commotion in the entire Yulong continent. So, I'll have to trouble you to disguise yourself as an ordinary person and return with us." "What about the two of us?" Adam walked over and put his arm around Lan Su's waist, then pointed at himself and Mo Sr. "You're both your excellency's people and also from the deity continent. I don't know why you're on Earth, so of course you have to disguise yourself." Lan Su struggled a little as Adam held her waist. In the Yulong continent, If an unmarried woman or an unmarried man were to be so close to a woman, they would be reviled by the world. In the Yulong continent, the monogamy system was far stricter than in country Z. Here, if someone were to have an affair in marriage, then both the person and the mistress would be hanged to death. This is the Yulong continent. You should show some respect, Lan Su said. If an unmarried man and woman were to be seen hugging each other, even a passerby would have the right to interfere. How can I respect you? Is there anything on your body that I haven't touched? Adam said as he moved closer to Lan Su. Before he finished his words, Emo-sen had already grabbed Adam and pulled him aside. Brat, behave yourself. As Adam's brother, Mawson still had this imposing manner. At this moment, Lan Su explained, in Yulong mainland, only married couples can hug each other in public. Here, as long as the marriage contract is signed, 2 rings will automatically appear. As long as they have this pair of rings, it means that the man and woman are husband and wife. Even if they do something in public, they are allowed. Lan Su's words made Emo-sen raise his eyebrows. Yun Jian had also never heard of this before. She turned her gaze to Lan Su. As soon as Lan Su finished speaking, Ce, who had been silent all this time, suddenly asked, "How do we sign the marriage contract?" Lan Su was surprised to hear Ce ask, but when she recovered, she explained patiently, "I'm not sure if you'll be able to do it. As long as you have a little spiritual power, you can summon the marriage contract array. Once the marriage contract is formed, it means that the 2 people are husband and wife, just like the people on Earth getting a marriage certificate, but this is more direct." Spiritual power was what people in Yulong mainland called their cultivation level. Lan Su added, "Usually, the marriage contract can only be signed with the consent of both the man and woman. However, if the man's spiritual power is stronger than the woman's, or if the woman's spiritual power is stronger than the man's, the marriage contract can be forcefully signed." Since she had said this, Lan Su had to add, "That's right. If the marriage contract is signed here, then even if you leave Yulong mainland and go to Earth, the contract will still be valid." Lan Su's last sentence successfully attracted Ce's attention. Yun Jian leaned in front of Ce. She was pressed against Ce's warm chest. No one saw the slight smile on Ce's thin lips when he heard Lan Su's last sentence. At the same time, he stretched out his large bony palm. In the dark, after he stretched out his hand, a spiritual power so strong that it could raise the entire Yulong mainland to the ground condensed in his large palm. However, it was only a flash. Chapter 1172. Yun Jian leaned against Ce's chest, so she didn't see the slight smile on Ce's lips. "We can set off now," Yun Jian said at this moment. Yun Jian didn't think that what Lan Su said was important, so she interrupted them. "All right." Lan Su obediently shut up and didn't say anything else. Just like that, the group was brought back to the sorcerer tribe by Lan Su. It would take some time to return to the sorcerer tribe from the exit of Yulong continent from Earth. With Lan Su and the others, it would take even longer. It took them 2 full days. In these 2 days, Yun Jian put on human skin masks for Ce, Adam, and Emo-sen, just in case something happened the last time. These 3 human skin masks were much more complicated than the disguise technique from before. More materials were used to make them, and the cost was also high. They were only one-time use. Yun Jian only gave them to prevent them from falling off when it rained like the last time. On the way back, Lan Su even returned the sandalwood box to Yun Jian. "Sorcerer goddess, this is yours. We're going back to the sorcerer tribe now. It doesn't matter if you're willing to help the sorcerer tribe return to its former glory or not. It belongs to you." This time, Lan Su didn't call out Yun Jian's name directly. Instead, he looked at her with a very calm expression and said these words that could be considered a sincere request. Yun Jian frowned slightly. She wanted to refuse, but when she saw Lan Su's sincere face, she raised her eyebrows and changed her words. "All right." She then took the sandalwood box from Lan Su's hands. On the way back, Lan Su also changed into a black ancient plain robe. Only Ce, Lan Su, and Yun Jian didn't change their clothes. They were all wearing modern clothes. "We're here. This is the sorcerer tribe." After 2 days of travel, Lan Su finally brought everyone to the sorcerer tribe. At this time, Yun Jian was standing in front of a large ancient building. This large ancient building was different from the houses of any dynasty left behind on Earth. Its size and grandeur were so great that even the shamans, who had fallen, would still be shocked by this magnificent ancient building. The entire hall of the sorcerer tribe was covered by a layer of darkness. If there were any experts or scholars here, their eyes would probably pop out of their sockets. This was because the main hall of the sorcerer tribe had been built for thousands of years without any cracks. More importantly, the main hall of the sorcerer tribe was not built with any soil or cement that existed on Earth. Judging from its composition, it was easy to tell that it did not belong to Earth. The first thing Yunjian saw when she raised her head was a huge crystal ball lying on the ground in front of the large building, which was also the front of the sorcerer tribe's main hall. No one was taking care of it. It wasn't that no one was taking care of it, but that no one dared to take care of it. That was something left behind by the sorcerer god. Let's go in. Lan Su took a deep look at the shattered pieces of the huge crystal ball, then led the way in. Yunjian replied softly. Thus, the group continued to move forward. However, before they could reach the center of the sorcerer tribe's main hall, a group of people around the same age as Lan Su stopped Lan Su. They were dressed in black ancient clothing. The leader of the group was a clean-looking young girl. At this moment, she was boldly blocking Lan Su's way. This young girl was different from Lan Su. She was born not long ago, but Lan Su had lived for thousands of years. She, as well as the group of young boys and girls behind her, had never seen the sorcerer god's true appearance. Thus, when the young girl saw Yunjian, she was only stunned by her beautiful appearance. However, the young girl looked at Ce and the other two indifferently. Finally, she looked at Lan Su and mocked. Chapter 1173. This young girl stood arrogantly in front of Lan Su. She tilted her head, and her 16 or 17-year-old face was filled with arrogance. Shut up. Wu Qing. How dare a junior like you be so arrogant? I'll send you to hell right now. Hearing the girl named Wu Qing's words, Lan Su almost couldn't hold back. She flipped her hands and 2 darts condensed from spirit energy appeared in her hands. You. Haha, Lan Su. Don't forget that my aunt is in charge of the sorcerer tribe. If you dare to be rude to me, I'll ask my aunt to chase you out immediately. This girl called Wu Qing had a high status in the sorcerer tribe because her aunt was the current leader of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Lan. In the sorcerer tribe, the leader was always the most powerful. In the sorcerer tribe, everything had to be done by the leader. However, this was only when the sorcerer god wasn't around. In the sorcerer tribe, there was only one sorcerer god. The only person who could decide the fate of the sorcerer tribe was the sorcerer god. In the sorcerer tribe, the leader was always the most powerful. However, in front of the sorcerer god, even if the sorcerer god killed the leader in front of everyone, she still had the right to do so. This was the sorcerer god's right. The sorcerer god could change the leader of the sorcerer tribe at any time. The reason why the sorcerer god was called a god was because in the sorcerer tribe, the sorcerer god was like a god. If she said 1, no one in the sorcerer tribe would dare to say 2. Of course, that was a long time ago. Many of the juniors in the sorcerer tribe had never seen the sorcerer god, just like Wu Qing. Wu Qing and the other juniors had never seen the sorcerer god, so they thought that the sorcerer god was just a legend. In comparison, Wu Qing and the others even thought that the leader had the final say in the sorcerer tribe. What sorcerer god? That was nonsense. Haha, Lan Su. Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you're the first protector of the sorcerer god who has never shown his face. Let me tell you, this is no longer the era of the sorcerer god. In the sorcerer tribe, my aunt has the final say. She loves me the most. Even if I want you to die now, you're going to die too. Wu Qing's words were full of righteousness. At the same time, she pointed at Lan Su and spoke arrogantly. Just as she said this, a few young men and women around Wu Qing's age fought to be the first to speak. Exactly. The legendary sorcerer goddess has never shown her face. Who knows if she really exists or not? It must be fake. Hehe. Wu Qing raised her head and looked at Lan Su even more arrogantly when she heard the voices around her helping her. Lan Su, I don't know why my aunt respects you so much, but don't get carried away. F***ck. Don't think that I won't hit you just because you're a child. If you dare to say anything bad about her again, I'll kill you right now. Adam couldn't bear to listen any longer. Adam didn't say anything when he was stopped by Lan Su. Now that he heard Wu Qing's insults, he almost rushed up to her and beat her up. For some reason, Wu Qing was startled by Adam. However, She quickly regained her composure. Wu Qing glanced at Adam. Just as she was about to curse back, a slightly mature but crisp female voice sounded, "Qing." Wu Qing immediately turned around when she heard the voice. "Aunt." Wu Qing was very happy when she saw the woman who suddenly appeared. Now that her aunt was here, she could vent her anger. "Auntie, I don't know where Lan Su brought a few people back from. Hurry up and chase these people away." Wu Qing skipped over to Wu Lan. She had just grabbed Wu Lan's hand and was waiting for Wu Lan to help her vent her anger when she heard Wu Lan's words. Wu Lan and the group of elders she brought all looked at the strangely dressed girl beside Lan Su. Chapter 1174. When Wu Lan and the rest saw Yun Jian, Wu Lan and the elders behind her immediately knelt down in front of Yun Jian. The reason was simple. The sorcerer god was too powerful back then. The sorcerer god's power back then was enough to make Wu Lan and the elders behind her tremble in fear. Even though it was no longer the era when the sorcerer god was at his peak, Wu Lan was still shocked when she saw Yun Jian, who looked exactly like the sorcerer god. Wu Qing was dumbfounded when she saw her aunt kneel down in front of the girl that Lan Su had brought back. In the sorcerer tribe, every person who was born was taught a philosophy. As long as the sorcerer god was around, the sorcerer tribe would definitely prosper. One day, the sorcerer god would return and lead the sorcerer tribe to the top of the Yulong mainland. The sorcerer god had once promised that he would return after 1,000 years. After 1,000 years, the sorcerer god would definitely return. Wu Qing had been taught this philosophy since she was young. She dared to say this because she had never seen the sorcerer god in person and thought that he was just a legend. However, when she saw her aunt, whom she had admired since she was young, and who was always high and mighty in front of everyone, actually kneeling before the peerlessly beautiful young lady beside Lan Su and addressing her as the sorcerer goddess, Wu Qing was completely dumbfounded. "Wu, sorcerer god. Aunt, what did you say? She is the sorcerer god?" No matter how unhappy she was, Wu Qing still turned to look at Yun Jian and asked Wu Lan in shock in front of everyone. Not only Wu Qing, but even the group of young men and women standing behind Wu Qing were all dumbfounded. "Qing, don't be rude. If you point your finger at the sorcerer god again, you will be expelled from the sorcerer tribe." When Wu Lan saw her niece pointing at Yun Jian, she quickly stood up and grabbed Wu Qing's hand, kneeling down in front of Yun Jian with Wu Qing. Seeing that the sorcerer tribe leader was so scared that she directly knelt down in front of Yun Jian, the group of juniors of the sorcerer tribe were so scared that they all knelt down one by one. This was the reputation of the sorcerer god. These juniors might not know, but Wu Lan had been the clan leader for thousands of years. Wu Lan and the elders behind Wu Lan clearly remembered what the sorcerer god had done in the past. When the sorcerer god was alive, the sorcerer tribe would prosper. When the sorcerer god was dead, the sorcerer tribe would fall. Therefore, Wu Lan and the others were extremely respectful towards the sorcerer god. Yun Jian stood in front of a group of people. She narrowed her eyes and watched as the group of people knelt before her. When Lan Su, who was standing beside Yun Jian, saw this, she also turned around and walked towards Yun Jian. Then, she gently placed her hands in front of her chest and bowed deeply towards Yun Jian. At the same time, Lan Su shouted in a very emotional tone, "I, the sorcerer god, am upholding the promise from 1,000 years ago. 1,000 years later, I return to the sorcerer tribe. Sorcerer god! Sorcerer god! Sorcerer god!" With the sorcerer tribe leader Wu Lan leading the group of people gradually shouted. In an instant, their shouts shook the sky. Yun Jian looked at the scene in front of her and felt that it was déjà vu. However, at this moment, a woman dressed as a maid suddenly rushed over from the side. After the woman rushed here, she lay on the ground as if she was paralyzed and spat out a mouthful of blood. Before she fainted, she shouted her last words, "Master, I'm sorry." Chapter 1175. After the woman finished her last sentence, she completely fainted. The crowd, who had been full of vigor, was furious when they heard that the Murong family had come to cause trouble again. 1,000 years ago, the Murong family was only a small aristocratic family. Their status was so high that people could ignore them. However, ever since the sorcerer god had fallen, the Murong family had climbed from a small aristocratic family to one of the 4 great aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. Now, the Murong family's status had almost surpassed that of the #1 aristocratic family of the Yulong continent. The sorcerer tribe had fallen. The sorcerer tribe had now been reduced to a small aristocratic family. As a once prosperous aristocratic family, the Murong family loved to bully the sorcerer tribe members. As the saying goes, there is no harm if there is no comparison. To the Murong family members, 1,000 years ago, the Murong family could not be compared to the sorcerer tribe. Now, the once prosperous sorcerer tribe had fallen to their current state. Now, the sorcerer tribe could not be compared to the Murong family. This stark contrast allowed the Murong family members to rejoice in their success. Hence, the Murong family members loved to cause trouble for the sorcerer tribe members. They even treated the lives of the sorcerer tribe members as child's play and killed them as they pleased. Some of the Murong family members had even raped the young girls of the sorcerer tribe in public. This was because compared to other families, the women of the sorcerer tribe cared more about their reputation. In the sorcerer tribe, if a woman held hands with a stranger, she would be punished. If she lost her chastity, the woman could only marry the man who had taken her chastity. Otherwise, she would kill the man. Or she would commit suicide. It was because they knew this that the Murong family members loved to defile the young girls of the sorcerer tribe. As the leader of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Lan had no way and no power to stop them. This was because the sorcerer tribe was no longer the prosperous aristocratic family they had been 1,000 years ago. If they could not bear it, they could openly oppose the Murong family. Then, the sorcerer tribe would not only be humiliated, but they would also be destroyed. If the Murong family wanted to deal with the sorcerer tribe, it would be a piece of cake. Clan leader, so many young girls of the sorcerer tribe have been defiled. This time we can't take it anymore. Just as the woman finished speaking, someone stepped forward and spoke loudly. At the same time, this person's eyes were filled with tears. The sorcerer tribe members of the sorcerer tribe were mostly sorcerer tribe. Most of the sorcerer tribe were women. There were also men, but not many of them. Most of them were women. Moreover, the women of the sorcerer tribe were very pure. This was because the sorcerer tribe had a rule that forbade any woman from getting close to any man before marriage. However, the Murong family's actions had forced the sorcerer tribe into a dead end. Therefore, the people of the sorcerer tribe yearned for the sorcerer tribe to prosper as much as they yearned for the return of the sorcerer god. Wu Lan clenched her fists tightly. At that moment, a clear female voice rang out. The Murong clan? Is it the clan that sent people to assassinate Lan Su? Everyone turned to look at Yun Jian when they heard her voice. This was the first time Yun Jian had spoken since she returned to the shaman tribe. Everyone looked at Yun Jian. Lan Su, who was standing in front of Yun Jian, nodded. Yes, the Murong family was the one who sent people to assassinate me. But in the end, Adam blocked the knife and the gun for her and suffered a very serious injury. Hearing Yun Jian speak, everyone turned to look at her. Chapter 1176. Did Yun Jian mean that she was going to attack? The sorcerer goddess was going to attack? The people from the sorcerer tribe were all stunned. They stared at Yun Jian as if they had seen their savior. Ce who stood beside Yun Jian had a faint glint in his eyes. He suddenly arched a brow as if he had a plan in mind. Right now, Yun Jian was standing in front of everyone with an imposing aura. Her red lips curled into a chuckle. Lead the way. Yun Jian's aura was very strong. Even though she did not have any spiritual power, no one could ignore her aura. She was like a king. Sorcerer goddess, follow me. Wu Lan quickly stood up and walked in front to lead the way for Yun Jian. Just like that, the group of people went to the side courtyard in a grandiose manner. At this moment, in the side courtyard of the sorcerer tribe, it was a gloomy place surrounded by a bamboo forest. From time to time, the sound of birds chirping could be heard. In front of the side courtyard, a few well-dressed young men were holding 3 or 4 young girls from the sorcerer tribe and touching them. Hee ha ha ha, run. Run. Run again. Let's see where you can run to. Little beauty, just give in to me. Ha ha ha. One of the most luxuriously dressed young men stopped a young witch dressed in black and began to grope her. Go away. Go away. Don't touch me. The young girl from the sorcerer tribe cried out in despair. Then, the young girl from the sorcerer tribe wanted to rush to the wall and protect her innocence with her death. Other than cultivating spiritual power, the people from the Yulong mainland had the same physical body as the people from Earth. They would die if they hit the wall. However, before the young girl from the sorcerer tribe could rush over, the chubby young man grabbed her hand and said, Hee, little beauty, I haven't had my fun yet. How can I let you die? The young man grabbed the young girl from the sorcerer tribe's hand and pushed her down, tearing her dress. Before the chubby hand could reach the young girl from the sorcerer tribe, the young man suddenly felt a strong force kick his waist. Then, the young man was sent flying by the strong force. Bam! The young man did not even have the chance to react before he was kicked far away by Yunjian, who suddenly appeared. Ah! The young man was sent flying and spat out a mouthful of blood. The other young men from the Murong family, who wanted to defile the pure young girl from the sorcerer tribe, were stunned. They were all shocked by Yunjian's appearance. Little beauty, who are you? One of the young masters was the first to react. When he saw Yunjian's pretty face, he nearly drooled. The young man from the sorcerer tribe who was kicked by Yunjian stood up in less than 2 seconds. Looking at Yunjian's beautiful face, the young man's heart was itching. However, when he thought of Yunjian's kick, he wanted revenge no matter what. Thus, the young man wiped the blood from his mouth and said angrily to Yunjian, "Where did this little beauty come from? How dare you kick me? I'll teach you a lesson." As he spoke, the young man gathered his spiritual power and attacked Yunjian. Lan Su, Wu Lan, and the rest who were following behind were shocked when they saw this. Yunjian did not have any spiritual power. The sorcerer god had just returned. How could she fight against the Murong family? However, just as the young man gathered his spiritual power, his fist was already in front of Yunjian. Chapter 1177. The moment the young man gathered his spiritual energy and hurled it at Yunjian with a spiritual energy that only existed in Yulong mainland, Yunjian was stunned. Just when he was 3 meters away from Yunjian, the spiritual power surrounding the young master suddenly disappeared. However, the young master's fist was already swinging towards Yunjian, and he could not retract it. In the Yulong continent, spiritual power was the most important thing. As a citizen of the Yulong continent, they only had one more spiritual power than the people of Earth. In other aspects, the people of the Yulong continent were no different from the people of Earth. In other words, if the people of the Yulong continent suddenly lost their spiritual power, coupled with the fact that the people of the Yulong continent relied on their spiritual power and did not have much physical training, the people of the Yulong continent who lost their spiritual power were even weaker than the people of Earth. The young master looked strong because of his spiritual power. However, when he was less than 3 meters away from Yunjian, his spiritual power suddenly disappeared. It was as if the young master had suddenly become an earthling without spiritual power. He was even weaker than the people of Earth in terms of physical strength. He was even weaker than the people of Earth. For such a person to be in the hands of Yunjian, who was known for her decisiveness in killing, it was easier than killing an ant. Everyone present was dumbfounded. However, in the next second, they saw the young master being kicked by Yunjian into a huge rock far away. His internal organs were smashed, and he died on the spot. Everyone was stunned by this scene. However, what shocked everyone was that Yunjian's ruthless skills were only one of the reasons. The most important point was that there was only one person in the world who could make anyone from the Yulong continent lose all their spiritual power within 3 meters of them. That person, she was Sorcerer Goddess. Sorcerer Goddess has returned. Sorcerer Goddess, please ensure the prosperity of the sorcerer tribe forever. Sorcerer Goddess. Sorcerer Goddess. In an instant, the people from the sorcerer tribe who came along all screamed. Their shouts shook the sky. Sorcerer Goddess had really returned. Because of Yunjian's move just now, she was able to make anyone from the Yulong continent lose their spiritual power within 3 meters of her. This was the essence of the Sorcerer Goddess. The reason why the Sorcerer Goddess in her previous life was so strong was because of her unique physique. As for the second reason, it was because of her strong spiritual power. However, Yunjian, who did not have spiritual power, was unrivaled in the Yulong continent. Of course, she could make anyone from the Yulong continent lose their spiritual power within 3 meters of her, turning them into an earthling like her. Based on this alone, Yunjian was unrivaled in Yulong mainland. This was the sorcerer goddess of the sorcerer tribe. She was the reason why she was strong. The sorcerer tribe, the sorcerer goddess. At this moment, the young masters of the Murong family looked as if they had eaten dog poop. Who in the sorcerer goddess in the sorcerer goddess? In the Yulong continent, who did not know that the sorcerer god had a physique that could make people within 3 meters lose all their spiritual power in an instant? However, the young lady in front of them was actually the sorcerer goddess. This was too inconceivable, wasn't it? However, just as the people present were beginning to accept this fact, Ce, who was standing beside Yunjian, suddenly pulled Yunjian into his arms. Seeing this, the people from the sorcerer tribe widened their eyes. The sorcerer goddess had always been alone. Who was this man? How could he pull the sorcerer goddess into his arms? However, before the crowd could react, Ce stretched out his hand. He stretched out his hand and used a spiritual power that was enough to destroy the entire Yulong continent to grab the young masters of the Murong clan. In the next second, the young masters of the Murong clan were smashed into a river of blood by Ce's mental strength. A few living people. Not even a single bone was left. They were crushed into blood on the spot by someone's mental power. The people from the sorcerer tribe widened their eyes in fear. It was also at this moment that Ce, who was holding Yunjian, broke into a smile. His mask was ordinary, but it could not hide his radiance. In the next second, Ce looked at Yunjian tenderly. His gaze was gentle as he spoke softly in the most pleasant voice in the world, uttering the most touching words. Xiao Jian, I'm willing to use the fall of the Murong clan as a betrothal gift to marry you. After that, a powerful marriage contract formation gathered beneath Ce and Yunjian's feet to form a 5-star formation and opened up abruptly. It was a force stronger than the sorcerer goddess. Chapter 1178. What did Ce say just now? He said that he was willing to use the fall of the Murong family as a betrothal gift to marry Yunjian. The first sentence was the main point, and the second sentence was also the main point. He actually had the ability to destroy the Murong family? This man actually had the ability to destroy the Murong family? Wu Lan and the surrounding elders were all dumbfounded. After thousands of years of development, the Murong family had flourished to a new level, but Ce actually said he wanted to use the fall of the Murong family as a betrothal gift to marry Yunjian. He needed to have the ability to destroy the entire Yulong mainland to be able to do that. Unless he came from the gods' mainland. As for the second sentence, it was even more unbelievable. He actually wanted to marry the sorcerer goddess of the sorcerer tribe? The sorcerer goddess had found a spouse? The sorcerer goddess, who had been alone for thousands of years, had found a spouse. There was nothing more shocking than this. However, at this moment, no one was more shocked than Lan Su. Ce had a human skin mask on his face, but Lan Su knew that Ce was the Lord Immortal. The Lord Immortal was really going to marry the sorcerer goddess? Lan Su knew about the Lord Immortal. He was a supreme existence in the gods' mainland that controlled all the continents. It could be said that in the entire universe, no one was more powerful than the Lord Immortal. The exit from the Yulong mainland to Earth had been created by the Lord Immortal by tearing space apart. This was something that was impossible in the universe, but the Lord Immortal had done it. Under the crowd's gaze, the 5-star light array beneath Ce and Yunjian's feet grew bigger and bigger. This 5-star light array was the marriage contract array. Under the crowd's gaze, the 5-star light array grew bigger and bigger until its light enveloped the entire world. To be able to cause such a huge light during the marriage contract, it was enough to show that the two people who were going through the marriage contract were kings among men. The light completely enveloped Yunjian and Ce, and a loud explosion was heard. The people standing around widened their eyes in shock. Only the marriage of two extremely powerful people could create such a huge 5-star light array. The 5-star light array that Ce had triggered was probably the entire Yulong mainland. No, it had never appeared on any continent in the entire universe. Oh my God! Someone exclaimed. Ce and Yunjian's figures were completely enveloped by the 5-star light array. Adam and Mawson were also surprised. Lan Su was so shocked that she couldn't control herself. Could this man be from the gods' continent? Someone exclaimed in shock. To the people of the Yulong continent and other continents, the deity continent was the place where the gods lived. There was once a rumor that the sorcerer god came from the deity's continent, but this rumor had never been proven. At this moment, the radiance of the light array began to fade, and the two figures became clear. Above the two of them, 2 silver marriage contract rings condensed. After a while, the 2 silver marriage contract rings flew into Yunjian and Ce's hands. The dazzling light gradually disappeared. A human skin mask fell to the ground. Ce's mask had fallen off. At that moment, Ce's perfect and handsome face attracted everyone's attention. His face was cold, aloof, and deep, giving people the feeling that he was a king. At that moment, Wu Lan and the others immediately knelt down in front of Ce when they saw his face. Wu Lan and the others were even more shocked than when they saw Yun Jian and the return of the sorcerer god. Wu Lan's eyes widened, and she was so scared that she fell to the ground and exclaimed to Ce, "Lord! Lord Immortal!" Chapter 1179. Auntie! Auntie! Wu Qing was taken aback by her aunt's action. When she came back to her senses, she glanced at Ce's enraged face and felt a tinge of jealousy toward Yun Jian, who was protected in his arms. This man was so handsome. So that ordinary face just now was fake. Wu Qing was shocked when she heard how Wu Lan addressed Ce. In the sorcerer tribe, the sorcerer god was the most commonly remembered name. But who didn't know about the Lord God? If the sorcerer god was a mythical figure, then the Lord God was like the gods in the modern world. He was an existence that was impossible to come into contact with. That was why Wu Qing only reacted after being stunned for a while. It was only then that Wu Qing and her friends knelt down in front of Ce. Lord God, you. As the leader of the sorcerer tribe, Wu Lan had always been a calm and steady person. But when she saw Ce, she completely lost control. God. The man who forced the sorcerer god to sign a marriage contract with her was the Lord God. The Lord God. Wu Lan had lived for so many years. She was lucky enough to see Ce at an anniversary ceremony 1,000 years ago. At that time, Ce, who was the Lord God, was personally welcomed by the most powerful king of the Yulong continent. Wu Lan trembled in fear when she recalled the scene. Even when the most authoritative king of the Yulong continent said something wrong, a protector by the Lord Divine Lord's side immediately crippled the most authoritative king of the Yulong continent on the spot. The king of the Yulong continent was replaced. At that time, this incident was considered a major event that shook the entire Yulong continent. The ruler of the Yulong continent was the king, and this king was chosen from a competition among all the strong people of the Yulong continent. He was the most powerful person in the Yulong continent. Of course, the sorcerer god was not interested in the competition for the throne of the Yulong continent. Otherwise, the king would not have been able to sit on the throne. However, even this king of the Yulong continent had to bow and scrape in front of the Lord Divine Lord. Even the previous king had been crippled by the Lord Divine Lord's protector, just because he said one wrong thing in front of the Lord Divine Lord. At that time, Wu Lan was also present. She knelt below and clearly heard the reckless king say to the Divine Lord, "The witch god of the sorcerer tribe? She did not attend the ceremony today. She definitely won't come." With just this one sentence, the Lord Divine Lord had directly ordered the protector beside him to cripple this king. At that time, Wu Lan found it strange as well. Why did the Lord God depose the king of the Yulong continent just because of this one sentence? But now it seemed that Lord Divine Lord forcefully entered into a marriage contract with Lord Sorcerer God. Could it be that the Divine Lord had already taken a liking to the Sorcerer God thousands of years ago? Thinking of this, Wu Lan almost jumped up from the ground. But back then, the Divine Lord and the Sorcerer God had never even met alone. How could it be? Wu Lan looked at Yun Jian and Ce with a complicated look in her eyes. She saw Ce gently lift Yun Jian's small hand. Then, he gave a charming smile and opened his mouth in front of everyone, declaring his sovereignty without hesitation. Chapter 1180. After Ce finished speaking, his lips curled up slightly. He would only reveal such a gentle expression when he was looking at Yun Jian. Seeing Ce like this, even Wu Lan's old bones trembled. She was obviously shocked by Ce's expression. The Sur Immortal, who came from the deity continent and was extremely famous even in the deity continent, could actually smile at a woman? This was even more unbelievable than the flood in the Yulong continent. Yun Jian had not spoken since the beginning, but her eyes were fixed on Ce with a hint of gentleness in them. It had to be said that Yun Jian's heart had silently approved of this. Especially when she held the ring on her finger, her heart skipped a beat. A feeling that she had never felt before filled her heart. It was a warm feeling. Just as Wu Lan and the rest thought that Yun Jian would say something, they heard Yun Jian softly agree. Then, she blushed. The sorcerer goddess was blushing? The surrounding people all looked on in a daze, unable to react for a while. Even Mo Sen, who was standing at the side, could not help but sigh at this scene. His young master's actions were so fast. However, at this moment, Ce held Yunjian's small hand and turned to look at Wu Lan. His tall figure made people tremble just by looking at him. After a pause, just as Wu Lan knelt in front of Ce and was so frightened by Ce's aura that she did not dare to move, Ce's cold voice sounded, "Murong clan, lead the way." Hearing Ce's words, Wu Lan and the rest of the sorcerer tribe quickly understood. Was the Sur Immortal going to stand up for the sorcerer tribe? The Murong clan was definitely done for this time. For thousands of years, the Murong clan had humiliated the innocent girls of the sorcerer tribe to the point that both humans and gods were furious. This time, the sorcerer goddess had returned. The Sur Immortal had also become the sorcerer goddess's man. The Murong clan was finished. Wu Lan quickly stood up and led the way like the wind, leading everyone to the Murong family. She could not wait to destroy the Murong family. The members of the shaman tribe hated the Murong family to the core. At this moment, in front of the main hall of the Murong family, there were many people sitting here. There were both men and women, but most of them were older. There were also a few younger ones. These young people were undoubtedly the hope of the Murong family's new generation. At that moment, an old man who appeared to be in his 40s was sitting at the very top of the Murong family. He was, without a doubt, the head of the Murong family, Murong Jing. At this moment, Murong Jing was sitting at the top, looking down at the group of people below. "You are where's Hua?" Murong Jing asked solemnly as he turned to look at a young man with decent looks. He, patriarch him? He brought people to the shaman tribe. He said that he wanted to find a clean girl from the shaman tribe to have some fun with. The young man called you, laughed cruelly and spoke in an extremely lascivious manner. This person's name was Murong Yu. He often went to the shaman tribe to persecute poor girls. I told you not to go to the shaman tribe to cause trouble. You better take it easy in the future. If one day, the sorcerer goddess of the shaman tribe returns, When Murong Jing mentioned the sorcerer goddess of the shaman tribe, his voice trembled with fear. However, before Murong Jing could finish speaking, Murong Yu snatched the right to speak. Hey, patriarch! Where did this sorcerer goddess come from? If the shaman tribe really had a sorcerer goddess, how could they have fallen to their current state? Those girls from the shaman tribe are really clean. Keske, I don't even want to get out of their bed. Murong Yu spoke even more impudently. Chapter 1181. Don't talk nonsense. The sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe has never lied. Murong Jing was obviously much more mature than Murong Yu. He frowned and said, Murong Jing had already existed when the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe existed. However, at that time, Murong Jing was a person with no status at all. Therefore, he was not qualified to see the sorcerer god or the divine lord's true appearance. However, even if he had never seen the sorcerer god or the divine lord's true appearance, Murong Jing had heard a lot about them. The deeds of the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe could be considered a legend. Therefore, Murong Jing was secretly afraid when he saw his juniors treat the sorcerer tribe members like this. If the sorcerer god came back one day and saw this, wouldn't the Murong family be finished? Oh, clan leader, what era is it now? What sorcerer god? I think it's just the sorcerer tribe's imagination. Besides, even if the sorcerer god comes back, what can she do? I don't believe that even if the sorcerer god comes back, with the sorcerer tribe's current ability, they will still obediently become our slaves. Murong Yu said confidently. As he spoke, he stuck out his tongue and licked his lips. He was already thinking about how to play with the girls of the sorcerer tribe. However, just as Murong Yu finished speaking, the door in front of the hall was suddenly kicked open by someone. Murong Jing's eyelids twitched. He was so scared that he sat up straight. However, at this moment, a slender figure stopped and entered. Then, a tall figure followed this slender figure into the hall. Behind them, many people dressed as sorcerer tribe members walked in. When Murong Jing saw this scene, his eyelids twitched and he couldn't help but stand up. When he saw Yunjian and Ce, who were the first to enter, Murong Jing frowned. He had never seen the sorcerer god, let alone had the right to see the divine lord. Therefore, Murong Jing didn't recognize them at all. When he saw the clan leader of the sorcerer tribe Wu Lan, who was standing behind Yunjian and Ce, Murong Jing stood up and walked over. Wu Lan, why did you bring a group of people and barge into the Murong family today? Murong Jing naturally had to show the imposing manner of a clan leader. Especially now, the Murong family was no longer the family with no status. The Murong clan was now one of the 4 aristocratic families of the Yulong continent. His status was different from before. Murong Jing's imposing voice made many of the Murong family members present feel respect for him. Their Murong family's patriarch was indeed different. Whether it was in terms of aura or strength, they were not to be underestimated. The Murong clan was indeed a dragon among men. As the Murong clan's influence grew, it wouldn't be long before they surpassed the #1 family in the Yulong continent and truly became the #1 family in the Yulong continent. At that time, they would completely turn the women of the shaman tribe into the Murong family's slaves. Aside from being clean and pure, the women of the shaman tribe were all very beautiful. That was why the Murong tribe liked to attack the shaman tribe. However, just as Murong Jing was about to scold Wu Lan, another crisp female voice rang out. "That's right, Wu Lan. Why? Today, I will destroy the Murong family on behalf of the shaman tribe." Chapter 1182. Yun Jian's words made Murong Jing's brows furrow tightly. Looking at the teenage girl in front of him, Murong Jing felt that this girl's aura was far above his own. Murong Jing's intuition told him that he couldn't afford to offend her. "You are?" Murong Jing frowned and asked softly. However, just as Murong Jing asked this question, Yun Jian suddenly smiled. Before Yun Jian could say anything, the sorcerer tribe standing behind her shouted excitedly, "Sorcerer God! Sorcerer God! Sorcerer God!" The sorcerer tribe members were extremely excited at this moment. All sorcerer tribe members hated the Murong family to the core. Even many of the sorcerer tribe women standing here had been violated by the Murong family members. Many of them had lost their virginity because of the Murong family's men. The sorcerer tribe members hated the Murong family so much that they couldn't bear it anymore. In the Yulong continent, the survival of the fittest, the strong were respected, and the weak were bullied. This philosophy was deeply rooted. At this moment, Murong Jing suddenly heard the sorcerer tribe members call Yun Jian the sorcerer god. He was so scared that his entire body stiffened. Your master sorcerer goddess?" Murong Jing pointed at Yun Jian, unable to contain his shock. As for the group of people from the Murong family, they heard the sorcerer tribe members call Yun Jian. A few of the younger generation didn't know the sorcerer god's ability back then, so at this moment, they all laughed loudly. Especially Murong Yu. His laughter was especially intense. "Ha ha ha! This girl is the sorcerer god? The legendary sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe? This is a joke, right? I thought the sorcerer god of the sorcerer tribe was an old woman. Did you sorcerer tribe members randomly find a beautiful girl to make up the numbers?" Murong Yu chuckled. At the same time, he looked at Yun Jian with a lascivious gaze. Everyone present clearly saw the evilness that flashed through his eyes. Murong Yu was staring at Yun Jian's ravishing face with a malicious gaze before he cackled and said, "That's right, Yun Jian's pretty face. Little girl, you're so beautiful, do you want to follow me? I guarantee that you'll have a good time." Before he could say the word heaven, Murong Yu suddenly felt an invisible hand grab his throat and lift him up from the ground. Cough, cough, cough. Murong Yu was startled. He desperately stretched out his hand, trying to break free from the invisible palm. Not far away, Ce stretched out his hand and used his spiritual power to lift Murong Yu up from the ground. "Do you think a piece of trash like you can covet my woman?" Ce said coldly. As he spoke, a terrifying killing intent flashed across his eyes. "Sorcerer God, Lord Divine Lord, please uphold justice for our sorcerer tribe. We'll return the humiliation that we've suffered for thousands of years to the Murong family." Wu Lan stood behind Ce. At the same time, she directly knelt down in front of Yun Jian and Ce and shouted loudly. Everyone from the sorcerer tribe knelt down in front of Yun Jian and Ce and shouted with all their might. "Sorcerer God, Lord Divine Lord, please uphold justice for our sorcerer tribe. We'll return the humiliation that we've suffered for thousands of years to the Murong family." The sorcerer tribe members shouted with all their might. For a moment, their shouts could be said to have broken through the sky. In spite of it, be it Murong Yu who was choked by Ce's mental strength, Murong Jing, the head of the Murong family, or everyone else in the family, all of them were completely stupefied. "God! Your Lord Divine Lord?" Murong Jing looked at Ce and was so frightened that he knelt down on the spot. Chapter 1183. One was the Lord God, and the other was the Sorcerer God. No matter which one it was, they were all well known in the Yulong continent. There were even some children who were unwilling to cultivate spiritual power. Their parents would use such words to scare their children. If you don't want to cultivate spiritual power, fine. Children who don't cultivate spiritual power will be eaten by the Lord God and the Sorcerer God. The Lord God and the Sorcerer God had already become frightening existences in the entire Yulong continent. Because of their strength. Compared to the Sorcerer God, the Lord God was indeed from the God's continent. What was the God's continent? The God's continent was the place that directly controlled the life and death of all continents. There were also people who said that the Sorcerer God came from the gods because of his strength. Murong Jing had heard of this before, so he was afraid of the Sorcerer God whenever he heard the name. Because he had heard that the Sorcerer God had torn a god from the God's continent into two halves. The God's continent. It wasn't hard to imagine that the people from the God's continent were all gods. That was the place where people were immortal and indestructible. That was also the place where the gods lived. However, a god from the God's continent had been torn into two halves by the Sorcerer God with one hand and died on the spot. Killing a god with one hand. It was also from then on that the name of the Sorcerer God spread. That was why Murong Jing was so scared when he heard the name of the Sorcerer God. That was why the Sorcerer God had become a terrifying existence in the hearts of countless people in the Yulong continent. As for the Lord God, there were rumors that the Lord God was the ruler of the God's continent. There were also rumors that the Lord God was the son of the king of the God's continent. No matter which continent, the ruler was called the king. There were many legends about the Lord God. Since the existence of the Yulong continent, the Lord God had never come to the Yulong continent more than 3 times. To the Lord God, this was a person that only existed in fantasy. Therefore, when Murong Jing heard that Ce was Lord Deity, the shock he felt was undeniable. God. Lord God. Lord God, spare. Spare my life. Murong Yu, who was suspended in the air by Ce's mind power, finally believed it. He had never felt such a powerful force. Such a powerful force was enough to destroy the entire Yulong continent. Murong Yu started to get scared, so he begged Ce for mercy. Do you think I'll let you off the hook for coveting my woman? Ce sneered. His handsome face attracted everyone's attention. No one had paid attention to Ce's words. Everyone was shocked by Ce's identity. Lord Divine Lord actually came here personally. Everyone present trembled in fear when they heard this. They didn't even think about what Ce had said. However, everyone present had clearly heard Ce's words. My woman? Could it be the Sorcerer God? Lord Divine Monarch and Lord Sorcerer? It was then that Murong Jing's attention was drawn to the pair of silver rings on Yunjian and Ce's fingers that were obviously a pair. You've signed a marriage contract? Murong Jing was so scared that his whole body twitched. Lord Divine Lord and Lord Sorcerer God were married? Then Lord Divine Lord was one of the Sorcerer tribe? He thought about how the Murong family had dealt with the Sorcerer tribe. Murong Jing suddenly fell to the ground as if he was paralyzed. The words that came out of his mouth made everyone in the Murong family fall into despair. Retribution. Retribution. The Murong family is doomed to be destroyed. Some of the younger generation were still unconvinced when they heard their clan leader say this. However, just as the younger generation was about to voice their dissatisfaction, Ce grabbed Murong Yu's hand and squeezed it with his bare hand. Murong Yu was lifted into the air and crushed. Not even his bones were left. He exploded into a river of blood in an instant. Seeing this bloody scene, the unconvinced younger generation of the Murong family were so scared that they all trembled and huddled together. Chapter 1184. Everyone present was shocked by the scene in front of them. Ce had actually crushed a living person so cruelly. Not even his bones were left behind. How powerful must he be to be able to do such a thing? He hadn't even gotten close to Murong Yu's body. He had crushed Murong Yu's entire body from a distance. Clan leader, save us. Clan leader, save us. The younger generation of the Murong family all gathered behind Murong Jing and desperately begged for help. They couldn't stop trembling. We were wrong. We won't dare to lay our hands on the sorcerer tribe anymore. Clan leader, please save us. Please save us. The younger generation of the Murong family were so frightened that they almost peed their pants. At this moment, they were all hiding behind Murong Jing and desperately begging for protection. When they had laid their hands on the innocent young girls of the sorcerer tribe, the younger generation of the Murong family had never shown mercy. A cruel murderous intent flashed in Yun Jian's eyes. She had not come to the Yulong mainland for the sorcerer tribe. She had heard that the mysterious person behind the Inferno Ring had come from the Yulong mainland. However, when she saw the sorcerer tribe being humiliated by the Murong family at this moment, she had a sudden urge to wipe out the entire Murong family. It was as if her bottom line had been violated. Today, I will use the blood of the Murong family to wash away the humiliation that the sorcerer tribe has suffered for thousands of years. Yun Jian said coldly. At the same time, she pulled out the indestructible butterfly knife that she had obtained from Satana. Once the scabbard was unsheathed, Yun Jian swung the butterfly knife and easily pointed it at the Murong family members in front of her. Her cold eyes seemed to have a strange luster, causing the younger generation of the Murong family to tremble. They were so frightened that their bodies twitched for a while. In spite of it, it was not Yun Jian's action that alarmed the Murong family. It was. When Murong Jing saw the knife in Yun Jian's hand, his paralyzed body, which had been sitting on the ground, suddenly pulled himself together. That blade is the God-vanquishing blade. When Murong Jing saw the saber in Yun Jian's hand, he was as scared as a pug and was filled with awe. How is this possible? This God-vanquishing blade. This God-vanquishing blade is only a legendary artifact. Rumor has it that the person who possesses it can kill the gods of the gods continent with his bare hands. Let's not talk about the Yulong continent. Even in the deity continent, the only one who can resist is probably the Lord Divine Lord. Murong Jing looked at the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand and was so scared that his whole body twitched. After hearing Murong Jing's words, the people around them all turned pale with fright. Everyone in the Yulong continent had heard of the God-Slayer blade because it was a legendary artifact. Those who possessed it could even kill gods from the gods' continent at will. Therefore, when they heard what Murong Jing said, they all straightened their bodies. The God-vanquishing blade was a legendary divine weapon. It was just like the legendary treasures of the immortals on Earth. It was something that did not exist in this world. It was a legendary item. But today, it actually appeared. With Murong Jing as the leader, everyone from the Murong family and the witch tribe were stunned. Yun Jian was also a little shocked, but she never showed it on her face. She did not expect that the family heirloom of the Satana family was a divine weapon from the gods' continent. A divine weapon that could kill gods. Chapter 1185. Yun Jian did not notice the gentle look in Si Yi's eyes. She was holding the knife with her right hand and was in a daze. The God-vanquishing blade referred to the God-vanquishing blade of this butterfly knife. This was because the original knife was not a butterfly knife, but a dagger. It had turned into a butterfly knife because Satana had personally made this dagger into a butterfly knife. Yun Jian had initially thought that this knife was only handy and extremely sharp. Now, it seemed that this was not the case. God-vanquishing blade? Why did she feel like she had heard this name somewhere before? Then, Yun Jian's eyes flashed. She suddenly thought of Si Yi's actions just now. He did not lose his powers. He even forcefully activated the marriage contract array and forced her to sign a marriage contract with him. Yun Jian's face turned slightly red at the thought of this. However, she quickly regained her senses. She was about to ask Si Yi when she paused. After all, there were too many people here. Some things were not easy to ask. Furthermore, the Murong family members were still alive and well in this world. When Murong Jing saw the God-vanquishing blade in Yun Jian's hand, he felt even more hopeless. He thought about how the Murong family had committed crimes against the sorcerer tribe for thousands of years. Was it really going to fall today? Just as Murong Jing was thinking about this, Wu Lan and the rest of the sorcerer tribe were extremely excited. The sorcerer god had returned with glory. The glorious era of the sorcerer tribe was about to arrive. Sorcerer god, Sir Divine Lord, please uphold justice for the sorcerer tribe. We will return the humiliation that we have suffered for thousands of years to the Murong family. With Wu Lan as the leader, the rest of the sorcerer tribe looked at Yun Jian and Si Yi. They knelt down again and shouted in unison. The humiliation that the sorcerer tribe had suffered would be returned to the Morong family today. When Yun Jian heard the shouts of the sorcerer tribe behind her, she suddenly placed the blade of the butterfly knife in front of her. Then, her red lips curled into a red arc. She simply blurted out a word that would determine the fate of the Morong family: kill. With the Lord Shaman and Lord Divine Lord leading the battle between the shamans and the Morong clan was about to begin. After hearing Yun Jian's words, the sorcerer tribesmen who were kneeling behind Yun Jian and Ce all stood up and charged into the Morong family with an imposing manner. As for the Morong clan, they were at a disadvantage from the very beginning because their momentum was weaker. However, just as the battle began and Yun Jian was about to step forward, Ce pulled Yun Jian back with her left hand. At the same time, Ce stretched out her right hand. Just like that, a huge invisible force was formed. His outstretched palm suddenly clenched. In the next second, a horrifying scene took place. Everyone in the Morong family seemed to have been lifted up by someone's hand. Even the head of the Morong family, Morong Jing, was no exception. Everyone was lifted up into the air and grabbed by their throats. In the next second, a pu sound was heard. Everyone in the Morong family was lifted up into the air and Ce clenched his fist. In just an instant, the thousands of people in the Morong family were reduced to blood with a pu sound. Not even a single bone was left. Thousands of people were reduced to blood in an instant. Blood flowed like a river. The sorcerer tribesmen were stunned. While they were relieved that they were not from the Morong family, they could not help but panic at the power of the Lord Divine Lord. This was the dignity of a strong person. If he wanted to destroy an aristocratic family that had accumulated over thousands of years in the Yulong continent, he could do it with just a wave of his hand. Chapter 1186. Ce squeezed his hand, and used his spiritual power to tear everyone in the Morong clan into a river of blood. The Morong clan was instantly shrouded in a river of blood. Anyone who had seen this scene would never forget it. Mo Sen and Adam, who were standing on the side, hadn't spoken a word since a moment ago. However, Lan Su was excitedly grabbing Adam's hand at this moment. She didn't even realize that she was grabbing Adam's hand excitedly. She was so excited that she almost jumped up. She had waited for thousands of years. The great witch god had finally returned. The witch race had finally returned to its former glory days. There was a flower-like smile on Adam's face at this moment. Because a certain tender little hand was grabbing her tightly, and she hadn't noticed it yet. Adam felt that his young master was particularly cool at this moment. He had tried every means to get Lan Su close to him some time ago. But he hadn't been able to do so. As a result, Ce had destroyed the Morong clan with a wave of his hand. And Lan Su had been tightly grabbing his hand this time. This feeling made Adam feel very good. Cough. The smell of blood here is too strong. I'll go out for a walk. Mo Sen saw that Adam was grabbing Lan Su's tender hand in broad daylight. He almost choked. After coming back to his senses, Mo Sen said this, then turned around and left the place, heading outside. Ce had destroyed everyone in the Morong clan. Then, he pulled Yun Jian's little hand and left. The people of the witch race didn't dare to say anything when they saw this. Moreover, Ce and Yun Jian had already signed a marriage contract. So, they were already husband and wife. The people of the witch race would naturally deal with the aftermath of the Morong clan's annihilation. News always spread the fastest in the Yulong continent. The news that the Morong clan had been annihilated had spread throughout the Yulong continent in less than an hour. The head of the four big clans of the Yulong continent was the #1 aristocratic clan of the Yulong continent, the Huyen clan. The Huyen clan was the #1 aristocratic clan of the Yulong continent. The Huyen clan had been famous for thousands of years like the witch race. However, the difference between the Huyen clan and the Shaman clan was that the Huyen clan had always been a famous aristocratic clan since 1,000 years ago. In fact, it had never declined. Moreover, the status of the Huyen clan was second only to that of the Shaman clan 1,000 years ago. Back then, the sorcerer tribe was the #1 family in the Yulong continent. No aristocratic family could surpass him. Therefore, the Huyen clan had become the #1 aristocratic family of the Yulong continent after the sorcerer race had declined. An old man in his 50s was sitting on a chair at the top of the Huyen clan's main hall. He was holding a walking stick. Many juniors were seated beside him. This 50-something-year-old man was the patriarch of the Huyen clan. His name was Huyen Ba. Huyen Ba was sitting at the top. He was frowning as he listened to the news that had just come from not far away. After a moment of silence, Huyen Ba finally opened his mouth. With the dignity of a patriarch, he calmly said, "What did you say? The Murong family was actually destroyed by the shaman tribe?" The person who was standing not too far away to deliver the news replied without hesitation, "That's right, the Murong family has been destroyed. I don't know where the shaman tribe got the ability to destroy the Murong family this time." The person remained silent for 2 seconds. Then he continued to speak. "There are rumors that the Lord Witch God of the shaman tribe has returned. The people of the Murong clan who knew that the Lord Witch God and the Lord God had returned had all died. Therefore, this person was only guessing at the moment. He didn't have any concrete evidence. Impossible! How can the Lord Witch God return?" Murong Ba refuted this person in a decisive manner. Murong Ba didn't hold back since he had said this. Chapter 1187. The patriarch of the Huyen clan, Huyen Ba, had a long-term plan. The sorcerer race had already declined. However, eradicating the sorcerer race wasn't something that could be done in a short period of time. It must be known that the sorcerer race had been the #1 aristocratic family in the Yulong continent for thousands of years. Eradicating the sorcerer race was even more difficult than eradicating the Murong clan. The reason why Huyen Ba didn't dare to act rashly was very simple. The Murong clan had been exterminated. Huyen Ba felt that the sorcerer race hadn't done this. He also didn't believe that the sorcerer god of the sorcerer race had returned. Therefore, there was only one explanation for the Murong clan's extermination. There was an 80% chance that the sorcerer race had joined forces with a powerful clan to eradicate the Murong clan. In other words, the sorcerer race had an expert helping them from behind. Therefore, Huyen Ba planned to take his time and planned to slowly eliminate the sorcerer race. Yun Jian and Ce didn't know what had happened in the Huyen clan. Even the people of the sorcerer race didn't know about it. Eradicating the Murong clan meant that the sorcerer race wouldn't be suppressed in the future. They could pick themselves up again. Yun Jian and the others had been arranged to stay in the sorcerer race's most luxurious main hall. Yun Jian and Ce were standing in a bamboo forest in the sorcerer race's main hall. Yun Jian had taken the initiative to call Ce over. It was very quiet here. Even the people of the sorcerer race rarely came here. Yun Jian raised her head and looked at Ce. She pursed her red lips. Then, she took out the butterfly knife made from the god-destroying blade and placed it in her hand. Yun Jian slowly raised her head and looked at Ce. She wiped her red lips. Her beautiful face and clear eyes fascinated Ce. Yun Jian paused for 2 seconds. Then she asked Ce, "Is this yours?" Yun Jian raised her hand and shook the butterfly knife in her hand. "You gave this to me, didn't you?" She did not ask the latter question in a questioning tone. Instead, she spoke to Ce with certainty. She looked at Ce, only to see Ce raise his eyebrows. Hearing Yun Jian's question, Ce would never hide the truth from Yun Jian. He replied decisively, "Yes." At the same time, he reached out and pulled Yun Jian into his embrace. Mesmerized by the girl's fresh and clean scent, Ce could not help lowering his head and bending down to Yun Jian's ear, where her collarbone was, to savor her wonderful scent as he explained, "There's no need for that. I did forge the god-vanquishing blade into a butterfly knife and asked Satana to pass it to you." In other words, Satana did not give his family heirloom to Yun Jian. Compared to Satana's family heirloom, the god-vanquishing blade in Yun Jian's hand was the true treasure. Compared to Satana's family heirloom, the blade of the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand was the true divine weapon. It was one of a kind in the world. It could be said that the two could not be compared at all. Ce had merely borrowed Satana's hand to pass the god-vanquishing blade that he had personally ordered his men to modify into a butterfly knife to Yun Jian. "You!" Yun Jian did not ask where Ce got the knife. She was suddenly touched that he had given her such a precious item without a word. Yun Jian's heart warmed. Just as she was about to say something in gratitude, Ce's shameless words were heard. "Xiao Jian, don't move. Let me touch you." Just as Yun Jian reacted, she felt a large palm reaching under her shirt. It went around her bra to latch onto a soft part of her and pinched gently. Chapter 1188. Shameless. Yun Jian wanted to scream right then and there. It had never crossed her mind that Ce, who looked dignified and handsome on the surface, who was completely uninterested in women, was hiding such a... Just as she thought about it, Yun Jian felt a large palm clasping a certain P in front of her chest. The feeling was truly... let go. Yun Jian did not hold Ce's hand, but she pushed Ce away with her flushed cheeks. As she spoke, she could not help blushing. How could Ce do as she wished? Finally, he had a lovely wife and he was a normal man now. If it were not for the fact that his Xiao Jian was still young, he would have tortured her to the point where she could not get out of bed for days. Be good, let me touch you. Ce pressed his lips to Yun Jian's ear and blew softly. If there was someone standing behind Ce right now, they would only see Ce bending down slightly. His actions and demeanor all revealed his handsomeness. No one would have thought that the prim and proper Ce was doing something so embarrassing to Yun Jian. Don't. We're outside. Someone will come. Ce's action made Yun Jian blush. She was certain that she had never done something so thrilling in her life. They were in the wild too. Although this was the territory of the witch tribe, the bamboo forest was near the mountain. They were in the wild with no one around, yet he was doing this to her. If someone were to see this... Just as she thought about it, a voice rang out. There's no one here. Come here and tell me. When Yun Jian heard the voice, so did Ce, who stood behind her. There was a glint in Ce's eyes. With a smirk, he wrapped his other arm around Yun Jian's slender waist while his other hand was wrapped around the girl's bountiful bosom that had never been claimed by anyone, unwilling to withdraw. In the next second, when the person who spoke was about to lead another person over, Ce hugged Yun Jian and darted into a bush that was as tall as a person not far away. Seeing that someone was really coming over and Ce was rubbing a certain part of hers gently, Yun Jian felt her face burning. As she thought about it, she peeked out from the bush and saw Lan Su and Wu Lan coming over. It was obvious that Wu Lan was the one who spoke just now. Wu Lan was the leader of the sorcerer tribe and had led the sorcerer tribe for thousands of years. Hence, she had a lot of authority in the sorcerer tribe. Lan Su followed them. She and Wu Lan did not notice Yun Jian and Ce, who were hiding in the bush. At this moment, Wu Lan walked over and turned to look at Lan Su. Suddenly, Wu Lan's gaze sharpened. At the same time, Wu Lan walked forward and grabbed Lan Su's hand, exposing Lan Su's wrist. However, Lan Su's wrist was white and tender. There was nothing on it. Where's your chastity sand? Wu Lan suddenly raised her voice. She sounded a little angry. Lan Su did not answer. She turned her head and looked to the side. After a long pause, Lan Su laughed mockingly and said, "What's the difference between having the chastity sand and not having it?" Wu Lan suddenly clenched her fists and frowned at Lan Su. "Have you forgotten the rules of the sorcerer tribe? Who is that man? Find him and kill him." "I did it willingly," Lan Su suddenly said. "Are you crazy?" Wu Lan roared at Lan Su. "I'm not crazy. Please don't come looking for me again. This is my business and it has nothing to do with a stranger like you." Lan Su glanced at Wu Lan and prepared to leave. Chapter 1189. Wu Lan's last sentence made Yun Jian's eyelids twitch. She did not expect Wu Lan to be Lan Su's biological mother. Yun Jian did not have the sorcerer god's memories, so she did not know if the sorcerer god knew about this. But after hearing Wu Lan's words, Yun Jian was still shocked. At this moment, she had forgotten that a certain pig trotter was still doing evil to her. In the distance, Lan Su's wrist was grabbed by Wu Lan. When she heard Wu Lan's last sentence, Lan Su's entire body clearly froze. Then, Lan Su mercilessly slapped away Wu Lan's hand that was grabbing her wrist. She said to Wu Lan, "Who I want to be with is my business. From the moment you abandoned me and refused to acknowledge me, we no longer have anything to do with each other." With that, Lan Su walked away without looking back. Wu Lan, who was standing in the distance, froze. A pained expression covered her face. Just as Lan Su was about to leave, Wu Lan shouted in the direction where Lan Su was about to disappear, "It's fine if you don't acknowledge me. I'm the one who has wronged you. But you can't let our people know that you've lost your virginity." As a mother, this was her advice to Lan Su. Wu Lan knew that she was being selfish. She was the leader of the sorcerer tribe. She should have said this immediately, because this was the rule of the sorcerer tribe. But she could not let her daughter be in a dilemma. Wu Lan stood there and pondered for more than 10 minutes. In these 10 minutes, Yun Jian did not dare to make a sound. This allowed Ce to take advantage of her. After Wu Lan left, Ce brought Yun Jian out of the bushes. In spite of it, Yun Jian's top was disheveled. If anyone saw this, they would think that she and Ce had done something. By the time Yun Jian and Ce returned to the sorcerer tribe's main hall, the banquet had already begun. The people of Yulong continent still needed to eat and drink, just like the people on Earth. Apart from having a constitution that allowed one to cultivate, as well as being able to easily live for over 1,000 years as long as one cultivated, his other physiques were exactly the same as those of the people on Earth. After dinner, Yun Jian asked Wu Lan some questions. She came here to find the whereabouts of the mysterious man. Moreover, Yun Jian did not intend to stay for long this time. Hearing that Yun Jian would soon return to Earth, Wu Lan and the people of the sorcerer tribe were disappointed. Wu Lan even asked symbolically, "Sorcerer God, will you return to the sorcerer tribe?" Wu Lan asked. Looking at Lan Su's pleading face, Yun Jian couldn't help but nod. "I'll come again." She came here just to inquire about the whereabouts of the mysterious man. She would leave after staying for a few days. While talking, Wu Lan promised Yun Jian to keep an eye on the whereabouts of the mysterious man. The dinner was soon over. When it was time for bed, Yun Jian slept in her own room. Ce slept in the main room as well, which was right beside Yun Jian's room. Just as Yun Jian pulled the blanket over herself and lay down, however, she felt herself being hugged by a firm chest. The familiar scent meant that the person who hugged her must be Ce. "What are you doing here?" Yun Jian blushed when she recalled what happened in the bamboo forest today and pushed Ce away. "Xiao Jian, it's our wedding night today. Where else can I go if I'm not here?" Ce lifted Yun Jian's hand shamelessly and looked at the matching ring on her finger as he said matter-of-factly. Yun Jian's cheeks flushed at his words. In the next second, Ce pounced on Yun Jian, pressing himself on top of Yun Jian. A certain part of him was swollen and hot, pressing against her softness through their clothes. "Xiao Jian, let's consummate our marriage." Ce's breathing quickened as he pressed himself on Yun Jian, his deep and magnetic voice ringing softly. Ce's current image was completely different from his usual aloof attitude toward others. Chapter 1190. While Yun Jian was drowning in shame, Ce's hand slid down her body to cup the girl's ample bosom again. Since Ce had signed a marriage contract with her, tonight was indeed their wedding night. In the dark, Yun Jian extended her hands and placed them on Ce's firm chest. Just as she placed her hands on Ce's chest, a sharp glint flashed in Ce's dark eyes. His Xiao Jian knew how to take the initiative now. Just as Ce thought about it, Yun Jian pressed her lips together. Her action was different from before. Even in the dark, Ce could clearly see Yun Jian's pursed lips. Her bashful action was like a young woman who had just gotten married. Ce was mesmerized. Be it in the past or now, the only person who could mesmerize him was his Xiao Jian. Ce was currently on top of Yun Jian, a certain swollen part of his body pressing against her soft hole. Despite being separated by 2 layers of clothes, it was unbearably hot. In the dark, Yun Jian's cheeks flushed even more. She turned her face to the side as she squirmed under Ce, bashfully like a young girl who had no experience in sex. Both of them were pressed together at a certain spot. Feeling it, Ce was close to spitting fire. "Xiao Jian, don't move." Ce was at the limit of his tolerance. He was a normal man. Facing the woman he loved, especially when they were pressed so close together, Yun Jian was still squirming. It was as if she was telling him to F*ck her. F*ck her. "I." Yun Jian was about to speak, but Ce covered her lips with his. She did not close her eyes, but she could clearly see Ce's sharp eyes with long and narrow lashes. Ce kissed her for a while. Yun Jian's eyes were wide open throughout, blinking up and down. It was only when she was almost out of breath from the kiss that Ce let go of her lips. Yun Jian panted softly. At the same time, she could feel the chilliness on her upper body. She did not know when Ce had taken off her top, even her bra. His palms were large, but Yun Jian was well developed. His palm could not even cover one of her twin peaks. Yunjian's cheeks felt like boiling water as she blushed in embarrassment. Ce went to Yunjian's ear and coaxed her softly, "Xiaojian, call me by my name." She had never called him by his name before. He looked at Yunjian expectantly while his hands never stopped moving. Yunjian felt her breasts swell. She pushed Ce but he could not get up. It was true that he was stronger than her. Yunjian's cheeks were still flushed. When Ce went close to her side, she suddenly called out softly, "Hubby!" Ce, who only wanted to hear Yunjian call him by his name, was stupefied on the spot by the soft voice. What did she call him? While Ce was stunned, Yunjian suddenly gave him a hard shove. Her push pushed Ce down and she flipped over to straddle him, turning the position of being on top of a man from a woman's bottom to being on top of a woman from a man's bottom. Her lower body was still wearing pants, but her upper body was already naked. In spite of it, Ce was dressed neatly as if he was a gentleman who came to watch a show. Yunjian bent down and pressed her chest against Ce's chest. She removed Ce's top quickly and said with a smile, "Fair enough. I'm the one on top." Chapter 1191. It turned out that she had called him hubby just now to distract him so that she could turn the tables and take control of the situation. When Ce learned of Yunjian's intention just now, he was not angry. Instead, he looked at Yunjian with a smile. "Say it again," he told Yunjian gently, not planning to press Yunjian beneath him again. His Xiaojian was the only one in this world who could distract him. Only his Xiaojian was the only person in the world who could do whatever she wanted to him. Ce thought that even if his Xiaojian held a knife to his neck or killed him, he would dote on her without hesitation. Even if she were to wreak havoc in an Hun group, not only would he not stop her, he would even help her. Ce had never thought that he would one day become like this for a woman. "What are you shouting for?" Yunjian was suddenly playful. She sat on Ce's upper body, their private parts pressed together with only two thin pieces of pants between them. Yunjian, who was sitting on Ce, purposely bent down to press her chest against his as she spoke, her waist moving her lower body and twisting it twice. Ce was almost burning with lust. He grabbed Yunjian's soft hand and pressed Yunjian beneath him once more. Ce's breathing was ragged as he panted with a smirk. All that was left in his eyes in the dark was his Xiaojian. At the same time, Ce bent down and stuck his face close to Yunjian. His lips moved again as he uttered softly, "Xiaojian, you're the one who started the fire. You'll extinguish it yourself this time." As Ce spoke, he held both of Yunjian's hands and raised them above her head with one hand while his other tugged at Yunjian's pants. "Don't!" Yunjian cried softly. Her cry, however, made Ce even more eager. When Yunjian called him hubby, her soft voice made Ce's lower body swell. He wanted to take off Yunjian's clothes and shove his desire into a sweet cave. With that thought, Ce did the same. He could not take it anymore. He could not take it anymore. His Xiaojian, the Xiaojian he loved so much. Now that his beloved Xiaojian was lying half-naked in front of him, he would not be a man if he could still hold himself back. At this moment, the words he had said to wait for her to come of age had long been thrown out of his mind. He wanted her. He wanted her. He wanted to combine his desire with her private parts. To make her truly and completely his woman. Yunjian's "don't" just now fueled Ce's ambition. His eyes were red as he reached out to rip off the pants that covered Yunjian's beautiful legs. Other than the panties she was wearing, she was not wearing a single piece of clothing. Yunjian was shaking when her last piece of underwear was ripped off. She pushed Ce but did not reject him. If she was still a little resistant when Ce touched her before, even if she was secretly looking forward to it, she had completely accepted it now. She loved him. It was a love that did not need words. It did not need to be mentioned all the time. When Yunjian lay naked beneath him, Ce finally could not hold it in anymore. Just as he unbuckled his belt and took off his pants, Yunjian's voice rang out. Chapter 1192. Ce was even more aroused by Yunjian's initiative. He kicked the offending clothes to the floor and pounced on Yunjian. He nibbled from her lips to her earlobes and then to her collarbones before moving lower and lower until he reached the pair of plump softness. Looking at the softness, Ce could not hold himself back as he bent down and kissed her. Yun Jian shuddered at the man's sudden intimacy with the maiden's untouched territory. In spite of it, she hugged Ce back tacitly, unwilling to let go of him. "Xiao Jian." The last words were buried between his teeth as Ce lowered his head and kissed the pea between her breasts effortlessly. His desire was once again delayed until it was pulled to the highest point. It was also at that moment that Yun Jian let out a moan that she did not even know what it was. In the end, Ce held his lust against Yun Jian and was about to break through everything. He paused and bent down to kiss Yun Jian for a while before asking, "Xiao Jian, I'm going in." Yun Jian dared not look at Ce, but she nodded. Needless to say, her rosy cheeks were flushed. Just as Ce was about to enter, however, a shout came from outside the door. It was very untimely. "Young madam, something happened to Lan Su. Young master isn't in the room, so I'm here to look for you." He didn't need to listen to this familiar voice to know that the owner of this voice was Mo Senator Ce, who was going to break through the last hurdle and make the person he loved completely his. Heard the voice that came at an untimely moment. He almost punched the bedsheets, resisting the urge to strangle Mo Senator Ce's muffled voice rang out, "Go outside and wait." Mo Sen did not enter the room. He stood outside the door and shouted into Yun Jian's room. He dared not enter the young madam's room casually. If he did, it would be strange if his young master did not kill him. However, when he heard his young master's voice coming from inside the room, Mo Sen was completely stunned. He stood there stupidly, and the anxiety in his heart was instantly forgotten. For a moment, he really couldn't react. "Get the hell away from me." This was one of the few times Ce lost his temper. Seeing that Mo Sen was still outside the door, Ce growled again. At the same time, he was holding Yun Jian's soft body, feeling impulsive. Just a little bit more and Xiao Jian was going to be his woman. But in the end, he was interrupted by Mo Sen, that stupid donkey. It was the first time Ce felt so impulsive. At the same time, his desire was swelling. It was also the first time Ce found Mo Sen an eyesore. Before Mo Sen, who was standing at the door and realized that he seemed to have realized something terrible was going on, he stumbled when he heard Ce's growls. Eventually, he steadied himself and turned to walk away. Yun Jian, who was pinned down by Ce, knew that it was not going to happen today. Seeing Ce's impulsive look, Yun Jian hugged Ce back out of worry for Lan Su. At that moment, Ce looked like a kid who was caught stealing candy and had his candy confiscated. Chapter 1193. As Yun Jian spoke, she glanced at Ce, who had a dark expression on his face. She had never seen Ce with such a dark expression before. Looking at his dark face and his uncontrollable expression, Yun Jian snickered. Then, she gently pushed Ce away and quickly put on her clothes. After she was properly dressed, Yun Jian paused for a moment. Then, she walked over to Ce and gently gave him a kiss. It was only then that Ce's handsome features relaxed slightly. He kissed the girl's sweet lips for a while before releasing the frown that was initially furrowed. "I'll go too." Seeing that Yun Jian had quickly put on her clothes, Ce also quickly put on his clothes. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of the red hickeys around Yun Jian's collarbone. Those were obviously marks left by himself. Ce's face that was dark earlier was now relaxed. Suddenly, Ce felt a sense of joy. Although he hadn't completely taken over her body, he had touched her from head to toe. Not only had he touched her, he had even kissed her. Where could she escape to in this lifetime? His woman one day would completely become his. Even if he had to climb a mountain of swords or plunge into a sea of fire, he would accompany her. He would pamper his woman. Whoever liked to watch could go and be envious. Seeing that Yun Jian didn't realize that there were red hickeys planted on her body, Ce's eyes lit up. It was bright red, especially under the light. As long as one glanced at it, it could be seen clearly. Ce's lips curved into a handsome smile. He didn't remind her and was already dressed properly. However, Yun Jian ran out and Ce followed her. After all, Lan Su had been with Yun Jian for such a long time. She had developed feelings for Yun Jian. Furthermore, in Yun Jian's heart, she had already treated Lan Su as one of her own. If that wasn't the case, Yunjian wouldn't have been the first to rush forward when she saw the Murong family bullying the witch tribe. It was precisely because the Murong family had attacked Lan Su and Adam on Earth. Adam had been seriously injured when he was ambushed in order to protect Lan Su. It was also because of this that Yunjian had a bad premonition when she recalled the conversation between Lan Su and Wu Lan in the bamboo forest. Hence, she walked even faster. At this moment, in the witch tribe's main hall, Lan Su was standing in front of Wu Lan and the other witch tribe elders beside her. Wu Lan's expression was terrible. As for the other elders of the sorcerer tribe, their attitudes were unyielding. In front of the witch tribe's main hall, Adam had just run over from his bedroom when he heard the commotion. However, he was stopped outside the main hall by the witch tribe. The sky was dark and silent. When Adam was stopped, Yunjian had already walked over with Ce. Seeing Yunjian, the witch tribe maid who stopped Adam immediately let them in. "Sir God and Lord Witch God, please enter." Yunjian understood. Just as she walked in with Ce, she saw Adam and Mo Sen, who had rushed over, being stopped by the witch tribe maid again. "Let them in," Yunjian ordered. The witch tribe maid didn't dare to disobey and immediately let them in. When Yunjian and the rest walked into the main hall, they saw Lan Su standing in front of a group of people. Among them, an extremely ugly-looking elder was pointing at Lan Su and scolding her. "Losing your chastity before marriage. To think that you are the sorcerer god's protector. Losing your chastity mark before marriage is such an insult to public morals. Who allowed you to do this?" The female elder's words were very unpleasant. Just as the female elder spoke, however, Yunjian's voice that was sharper and more forceful was heard. Chapter 1194. These elders of the sorcerer tribe were very pedantic in their thinking. To put it bluntly, they were comparable to the old antiques of country Z on Earth. From some perspectives, the elders of the sorcerer tribe were even more exaggerated than the older generation of country Z. Although the sorcerer goddess was older than the tribe leader and was the most powerful existence in the sorcerer tribe, there were always some people who felt that they could lecture her from the perspective of an elder. Even because Yunjian looked younger, these elders of the sorcerer tribe were like Yunjian's teachers and wanted to lecture Yunjian in every possible way. Some of them even thought, if I say these words now, these young people will definitely know and understand me in the future. Then, they will repay me with a grateful attitude. Just like this elder of the sorcerer tribe just now. The elder who said that Lan Su was indecent did not have a surname. The people of the sorcerer tribe all called her Elder Kong. Her name was Kong. Elder Kong felt that she was teaching Lan Su in such a tone because she was doing it for Lan Su's good. However, Lan Su had forgotten one thing. Lan Su had treated her own beliefs as the absolute right, but she had once denied Lan Su's own beliefs. Elder Kong even thought that she did not need to use the tone of an elder to lecture Lan Su. She stood up and said that it was for Lan Su's good. Elder Kong said that so that Lan Su would understand her good in the future when she found out that everything she said was correct. However, Elder Kong did not know that Yunjian hated people like her the most. Elder Kong stood up and said that Lan Su was not right. In fact, her main purpose was to curry favor in front of the sorcerer goddess. However, she expressed it in a way that she thought Yunjian would feel good about. Elder Kong did not know that Yunjian hated her behavior very much. Hence, after hearing what Yunjian had said, Elder Kong turned around and lectured Yunjian. "Sorcerer goddess, although you are the savior of our sorcerer tribe and the future of our sorcerer tribe, you are still a sorcerer tribe. But what I said was all for the sake of Lan Su. The women of the shaman tribe should abide by their duties. If the young women of the shaman tribe who lost their chastity before marriage were raped by the people of the Murong family, it would be irreversible. But Lan Su has broken the rules of our shaman tribe. So according to our rules, she should..." "Shut up. Old thing, if you keep talking, I'll turn you into a dead man in the next second." Yunjian suddenly scolded. At the same time, she took out the god-vanquishing blade butterfly knife and placed it in front of Elder Kong. "Heh, don't think that I won't kill you just because you're an elder of the shaman tribe. Don't forget, I don't even remember what the shaman tribe is. Let's not talk about you. If anyone from the shaman tribe dares to disobey me, I'll kill them all right now." Yunjian was arrogant. Extremely arrogant. Her words could not hide her arrogant tone. She held the knife and pointed it at Elder Kong. That was right. No one could disobey her. No one had the right to criticize her. No one had the right to criticize her in front of her. This was the dignity of the sorcerer goddess. Perhaps it was because he had lived a carefree life for thousands of years that Elder Kong had long forgotten the arrogance of the sorcerer goddess. It was because she was strong. That was why she was arrogant. Her words were like the sky in the entire shaman tribe, in the entire Yulong mainland. That was an imperial edict. Everyone present was suddenly shocked by Yun Jian's actions. Especially Elder Kong. If the sorcerer goddess from thousands of years ago was standing in front of him, Elder Kong would not dare to lecture her. However, the current Yun Jian made Elder Kong think that she was someone he could control. However, Elder Kong was wrong. When Yun Jian pointed the god-vanquishing blade at Elder Kong was so frightened that he almost knelt down. Chapter 1195. Everyone in the Yulong mainland knew that the Lord Divine Lord had 4 protectors under him. There was no need to mention the Lord Divine Lord's own strength. Any one of the 4 protectors under him was enough to suppress everyone present. The people of the Yulong continent had heard that the Lord Divine Lord was a supreme existence in the deity's continent. Apart from that, the Lord Divine Lord also had 4 guardians. The strength of these 4 guardians was second only to the Lord Divine Lord. Not to mention the Yulong continent, even in the deity's continent, they were existences that could destroy heaven and earth. Hence, it was not difficult to see that when Elder Kong saw Adam reveal his true appearance, she, who had originally wanted to mock Lan Su for finding a nameless junior, immediately stopped talking. She had originally thought that Lan Su had given her virginity to a man who had appeared out of nowhere. Who would have known that this man was the Lord Divine Lord's guardian? It was said that in the gods' continent, other than the Lord Divine Lord, the Lord Divine Lord's 4 great protectors were the rulers of the gods' continent. As long as the Lord Divine Lord didn't take action, the Lord Divine Lord's 4 great protectors could make any decision on behalf of the Lord Divine Lord. Moreover, each of them had the ability to destroy heaven and earth. One of the 4 guardians from the deity's continent, the rumored hot-tempered Adam, was actually the man who had taken Lan Su's virginity. In this case, there was no need to talk about the rules of the sorcerer tribe. The people of the sorcerer tribe worshipped Adam like how they worshipped the Lord Divine Lord. How could they dare to take action against Lan Su? TSK, what a joke. Elder Kong's entire body trembled. She was thinking that it was a good thing that she did not say anything that would consign her to eternal damnation. However, it was also at this moment that Elder Kong suddenly felt her throat tighten. In the next second, Elder Kong's throat was tightly gripped by an invisible hand. Everyone present was shocked when Elder Kong was lifted up into the air. However, when they saw CE, who was not far away, use his mental strength to lift Elder Kong up, everyone present was terrified. CE's face was terrifyingly dark. After using his mental strength to lift Elder Kong up, he threw her out fiercely. Elder Kong was already an old woman, so after being flung by CE, she was thrown onto a bench not far away from the main hall. The stool shattered in an instant, and Elder Kong fell to the ground, spitting out a mouthful of blood. Seeing CE's sudden action, the surrounding people instantly turned pale with fright, but at this moment, no one dared to stand out and say anything bad about CE. At this moment, CE's mellow voice, which carried a trace of murderous intent, rang out. If you dare to stir up trouble at night in the future, there's no need for your sorcerer tribe to exist in this world. After saying this, CE grabbed Yun Jian's hand and walked out. With his words, the people of the Wu tribe were a little suspicious. Why was the Divine Lord so angry? However, no one could have imagined that because of what happened tonight, someone's plan to win the beauty's heart had been completely disrupted. However, the people present would definitely not dare to do anything else. Besides, Adam and Mawson were here. Who else could question the sorcerer god's words? Even for Elder Kong, it was already a miracle that CE was merciful enough to keep her alive. Wu Lan finally breathed a sigh of relief for Lan Su. She was not a good mother. She did not even dare to stand out and admit that Lan Su was her daughter. Being pulled away by CE, Yun Jian paused just as they were about to leave the main hall of the Wu tribe. She then turned around and told the people in the hall, "I'll be returning to Longmen City tomorrow." She was telling them, not asking for their permission. Chapter 1196. Yun Jian's decision to return to Longmen City was not made on the spur of the moment. From the moment Yun Jian stepped into Yulong mainland, Her objective was simple. She wanted to know who the mysterious person who was controlling Inferno Ring behind the scenes was. The culprit behind her brother's tragic death in her past life had yet to be eradicated. Of course, this was only one of the reasons. From her brother's death in her past life to her constant assassination attempts recently, all signs pointed to the fact that this was not as simple as it seemed. Hence, Yun Jian decided to make a trip to Yulong mainland. In spite of it, Yun Jian was well aware that there were not so many coincidences in this world. It was impossible for her to find the mysterious person on her trip to Yulong mainland this time. Before she left, Yun Jian had privately asked Wu Lan to track down the mysterious person for her. At the same time, she asked Wu Lan to find someone for her. The person was her mentor in her past life, an old man whose name she did not know. It was this old man who taught her hypnotism and other techniques in her past life, allowing her to survive in the world of cannibalism. A long time ago, Yun Jian heard that the old man was from Yulong mainland. Now that she had come to Yulong mainland, she wanted to see her mentor again if there was hope in the future. Lan Su paused and kept quiet for 2 seconds. I think. Lan Su bit her lip. Just as she was about to state her decision, Adam, who stood beside her, grabbed Lan Su's hand. Adam then spoke to Yun Jian on behalf of Lan Su. Young mistress, look at how homesick she is. She definitely won't be returning to Longmen City anytime soon. As he spoke, Adam's feigned cool face was magnified. He laughed and said smoothly, Young mistress has agreed to let me stay in Longmen City for a while. Young master has already agreed for me to stay in Yulong mainland for a while. I will take good care of her. When the situation of the sorcerer tribe improves, I will not allow her to stay in Yulong mainland even if she wants to. As he spoke, Adam reached out and pinched Lan Su's tender face before bursting into laughter. After hearing Adam's light-hearted words, Lan Su was very moved and looked up at Adam. Unknowingly, Lan Su's hand had already been held by Adam. She didn't realize it, but she was very touched that Adam had actually spoken the words in her heart. After pausing for 2 seconds, Lan Su heaved a sigh of relief and said to Yun Jian, Yun Jian, I want to stay in the Yulong mainland. At least, I can't leave for now. The Murong clan has been destroyed. Now is the best time for the sorcerer tribe to rise. I'll wait for you in Longmen City. Yun Jian nodded with a smile. She was never one to stop others from having their way of thinking. Towards her own people, like Qin Yiru and Yun Yi, Yun Jian had never supported them no matter what they wanted to do. Hearing Yun Jian's words, Lan Su was touched. At the same time, she held Adam's hand and promised Yun Jian. Yun Jian, don't worry. I only need a semester, no, a summer break to make the sorcerer tribe rise. I'll definitely go to Longmen City to look for you when the time comes. I'll wait for you. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes with an unfathomable gleam in them. This was a belief and also a promise between her and Lan Su. That night, Si fell asleep with Yun Jian in his arms, but he did nothing. Early the next morning, Yun Jian, Si, and Mo Sen returned home. Knowing that Si was still functioning, there was no need for Lan Su to send them off on the journey from the sorcerer tribe to Yulong mainland's entrance to Earth. It was not difficult for Yun Jian to get here from Earth. Wu Lan would inform Yun Jian once there was news, and Yun Jian would definitely come to Yulong mainland at once. Therefore, even though Lan Su was reluctant to part, it was not to the point of parting forever. At the same time, Yun Jian and the other two had already passed through the stone tunnel back to Earth and exited through the tunnel entrance. Just as they exited, they realized that Lin Xiaochu, Lin Meiyan, and the rest had not left. Chapter 1197. Hey, you guys are finally out. I've been waiting for you guys for a long time. Lin Meiyan rushed over to Yun Jian before Lin Xiaochu did. She wanted to reach out and hold Yun Jian's hand like a good friend. Previously, anyone could see Lin Meiyan's attitude towards Yun Jian. Lin Meiyan's previous attitude was that she couldn't wait for Yun Jian to die immediately. But now, it was a completely different tune. Lin Meiyan's attempt to grab Yun Jian's arm when she ran over was written all over her face with an ulterior motive. When Yun Jian saw Lin Meiyan pouncing towards her, she couldn't help but smile coldly. Then, in the next second, she stealthily avoided Lin Meiyan's hand. Yun Jian stealthily avoided Lin Meiyan, who was pouncing towards her, causing Lin Meiyan to glare at her fiercely. Lin Meiyan glared at Yun Jian as if she wanted Yun Jian to die. Then, she instantly put on a fawning expression and came over again. What's wrong? It's only been a few days. Don't you recognize me? Lin Meiyan said as she fiddled with her hair coquettishly. At the same time, she threw a coquettish glance at Mo-sen who was not far away. Ce gaze and methods were too ruthless. In addition, Ce was Yun Jian's man. Previously, when Yun Jian killed the pack of wolves, Lin Meiyan was frightened. So, Lin Meiyan didn't dare to provoke Yun Jian at this moment. One had to know that Yun Jian's look when she killed the wolves was a whole new level of ruthlessness. How could a normal girl be like her? Because of this, Lin Meiyan didn't dare to get close to Yun Jian's man no matter what. However, as soon as Lin Meiyan threw a coquettish glance at Mo-sen, she saw Mo-sen move his head aside. His calm and cold face made Lin Meiyan eat another loss. Yun Jian saw Lin Meiyan's actions clearly and couldn't help but sneer. She didn't intend to stay here any longer and was about to leave with Ce and Mo Sr. Let's go, Yun Jian said softly, then walked side by side with Ce, followed by Mo Senator. The three of them walked towards the tunnel leading out of the tomb. Are you leaving? This time, it was not Lin Xiaochu or Lin Meiyan who spoke up to stop Yun Jian, who wanted to hook up with her after seeing how capable she was. It was Lu Guodong, the archaeologist who had been very helpful to Yun Jian and Ce not long ago. Yes. Yun Jian nodded but didn't say anything else. Have a safe journey, we'll meet again if fate allows. Lu Guodong cupped his hands towards Yun Jian and the other two in a very professional manner. Thank you, Yun Jian also smiled, then walked out with Ce and Mo Sr. Hey, you guys are leaving just like that? You guys. Lin Xiaochu wanted to chase after Yun Jian but was stopped by Senior Hu Chirue, who she was thinking about. Ning Xia stood in place and thought for a while. Then she ran towards Yun Jian and took out a very precious handkerchief embroidered with two mandarin ducks playing in the water. Ning Xia handed the handkerchief to Yun Jian, then took a deep breath and smiled sincerely. This is for you, I personally embroidered it. I hope you guys can be happy forever. Hee. My house is in Jia Province's Ning City. I don't know if your house is far from mine, but my house is by the sea. If you guys want to go out during the summer vacation, you can come to the beach near my house and eat seafood. Chapter 1198. After Ningxia gave the address, she looked at Yun Jian with sincerity as if waiting for Yun Jian's reaction. Yun Jian merely blinked up and down. After 2 seconds of silence, Yun Jian smirked and answered Ningxia softly, Sure. If Qing Yu, who had been following Yun Jian around, was here and witnessed this, she would have exclaimed in shock. Slaying God, the #1 on the international secret agent ranking, had actually agreed to an invitation from someone she had met during her journey? Yun Jian wanted to decline, but the reason she agreed was simple. She saw gratitude in Ningxia's eyes. It was gratitude for saving her life. Another reason was that Xiao Yunzhu had mentioned earlier that he wanted to travel by the sea during the summer vacation because he could enjoy fresh seafood. Serene City was a coastal area and was close to the sea. There was also a small island in Serene City which was a sacred spot for seaside vacations. Therefore, Yun Jian did not reject Ningxia's offer. Yun Jian had saved Ningxia and that was obvious to all. Earlier, in the hotel in Hassa village, the group of robbers came to steal things and women in the middle of the night. They mainly stole women. In a poor area like Hassa village, women were considered precious. Many men could not afford to marry a wife. Therefore, if Yun Jian had not struck the robber who wanted to take Ningxia away with a butterfly knife, Ningxia would have undoubtedly been taken away by the group of premeditated robbers. If Yun Jian had not saved her, the owner of the hotel, Sartana's daughter, Eliza, would have been raped by the robbers one after another. Ningxia would have ended up like Lin Xiaochu. Lin Xiaochu was no longer a virgin. A disobedient girl like her had tasted the forbidden fruit since she had gotten a boyfriend a long time ago. Later on, she would have to sleep with every boyfriend she had. As Ningxia was closer to Lin Xiaochu and they were roommates in university, Lin Xiaochu had told Ningxia about it in a boastful tone. However, Ningxia was different. Her family was stricter and she was more old-fashioned, thinking that a girl should only give herself to someone on her wedding night after she got married. If Ningxia had been raped by the robbers a few days ago, she would probably have committed suicide. She was the kind of woman who would rather commit suicide than be humiliated. In Ningxia's heart, Yun Jian had saved her life. In Ningxia's heart, She thought that Yunjian was supposed to be someone high and mighty. Therefore, Ningxia was overjoyed when she heard that Yunjian had agreed to let her travel near her home. She had even exchanged contact numbers with Yunjian and reminded Yunjian to visit her home when she was free. She would definitely treat Yunjian well. Under Ningxia's grateful gaze, Ningxia left. She rushed back to Country Z's Longmen City that very night. After sending Yunjian to the airport, CE brought Mo Sen back to an Hun group. After all, it took time and effort to manage a large organization. When Yunjian returned to Gu Yunjian's house in Country Z's Longmen City, Xiao Yunju skipped over with Duan Li and Duan Ya. The trio glanced at Yunjian but did not see CE. Xiao Yunju then asked curiously, "Where's CE Gij?" "He's not back yet." Yunjian looked at her brother's chubby cheeks and pinched them. She could not help asking, "Have you been obedient recently?" Xiao Yunju shook his head like a rattledrum. "Of course, I've been obedient. I'm a man now." Chapter 1199. Summer break was always the time that students looked forward to the most because there were 2 months of holiday. It was enough time for students to indulge in the joy of the holiday and feel like they were free birds instead of students. No one could restrain them, and no one could control them to go to school. No teacher could use a commanding tone to make them do unpleasant things. Xiao Yunju, Duan Li, and Duan Ya finally had summer break, and the 3 of them really wanted to relax. This time, when Xiao Yunju saw that Yunjian had returned from a long trip, he couldn't help but look at Yunjian with anticipation. In fact, Xiao Yunju had asked Yunjian, "Where is big brother CE?" because he wanted CE to take the 3 of them out to play. Xiao Yunju knew that big brother CE doted on him the most. Even big sister didn't dote on him as much as big brother CE. If he wanted to go out to play, big brother CE would definitely agree to take him. Moreover, Duan Li had asked Little Hui about it, and Little Hui had said that big brother CE doted on him so much because he wanted to woo his big sister. Little Hui had also said that as long as he helped big brother CE woo his big sister, big brother CE would treat him even better. Yunjian had no idea that she had been betrayed by her little brother. When she heard that Xiao Yunju and the other 2 wanted to go out to play, she immediately squatted down and looked at Xiao Yunju, nodding. "Okay, where do little Zhu, Chestnut, and Yaya want to go?" Yunjian asked. "Yay, we can go out to play. We want to go to the beach." "Big sister, we want to go to the beach. There's a lot of seafood to eat, and we can go swimming. There's also a beach with small crabs to catch on the beach. Little Hui from our class has been there before, and he said that if he didn't go to the beach, he would regret it for the rest of his life." Xiao Yunju clapped his hands innocently, unable to control himself. "What regret? You are still young." Yunjian gently patted Xiao Yunju's mouth, telling him that it was inauspicious to say that. Yunjian knew Xiao Yunju quite well. She knew that Xiao Yunju wanted to go to the seaside, so she agreed to go to Ningxia, which was a good choice. At the very least, it would be much more convenient to have an acquaintance lead the way when they went out to play. Usually, when traveling, they were unfamiliar with the place and people, and it was easy for them to take detours. There were no navigation systems in this era. Mobile phones could only be used to make calls and send text messages. At most they could play small games like Snake. In the end, she told Qin Yiru that the whole family would go out to play. At that time, Gu Junjian would also apply for leave to go with them. As for the time, it was set to be a week later because Gu Junjian would only have time to apply for leave after a week. CE couldn't come because she was busy. However, CE said that he would try his best to come and asked Yunjian to take good care of Xiao Yunju and the others while they went out to play first. The week passed by quickly, and it was the day before they left for the trip in the blink of an eye. Since it took some time to travel from Longmen City to Serene City by car, Xiao Yunju and the others were as excited as if they were going on a spring outing the next day. They dragged Yunjian to the supermarket in Longmen City that night. "I want to buy 3 bags of potato chips." In the supermarket, Xiao Yunju was standing under a food rack. Since he could not reach the height of the chips, he tiptoed to ask Yunjian to help him get them. Just as Yunjian turned around happily, she saw a woman in her 30s or 40s, dressed to the nines, walking over to push Xiao Yunju away with her perfect figure and put the remaining 5 bags of chips into her shopping cart. Chapter 1200. Yunju nearly lost his footing when he was shoved by the woman who was dressed to the nines like she was in her 20s despite being a middle-aged woman. Fortunately, Xiao Yunju reacted quickly. He immediately reached out and grabbed a handful of food racks to prevent himself from falling to the ground. However, because he grabbed a handful of food racks, he accidentally knocked the pile of potato chips with different flavors onto the ground. The potato chips on the racks even bounced back from Xiao Yunju's grab. In the next second, a large pile of packaged potato chips all fell to the ground. The woman was scared silly. She pushed the shopping cart and saw Xiao Yunju tripping over a large pile of potato chips on the food racks after she pushed him. Therefore, she complained about Xiao Yunju. Hey, what's wrong with you, little brat? Whose kid is this? Why are you so careless? You dropped so many potato chips on the ground. You have to pay for it. As she spoke, the woman seemed to be afraid that she would be implicated in this matter. Therefore, as if to clear herself of suspicion, she hurriedly went to call a very short, fat female employee, who was dressed in a supermarket employee uniform. She also had big nostrils. Look, this kid. I really don't know whose family he is from. He actually made such a mess here. There are so many potato chips. Although they're not expensive, it's not good for him to cause trouble here, right? The gorgeously dressed woman seemed to be completely in the right as she spoke to the employee. Especially the sentence, although they're not expensive. The gorgeously dressed woman's intention was to let others think that her family was rich, so she added that sentence. When Xiao Yunju almost fell to the ground just now, Duan Li and Duanya had already ran over to help Xiao Yunju up. Yun Jian, who was a distance away, had also arrived here. She saw the whole situation clearly just now, especially when the woman pushed Xiao Yunju. She saw that Xiao Yunju accidentally dropped all the potato chips on the food racks. She was afraid that she would be implicated, so she ran over to the employee to point out Xiao Yunju's faults. She even said that Xiao Yunju was causing trouble here. Yun Jian resisted the urge to pull out a butterfly knife and stab the gorgeously dressed woman to death on the spot. The woman was still complaining to the supermarket employee beside her, and the latter wanted nothing more than to chase Xiao Yunju, the troublemaker, out of the supermarket. She walked over. The gorgeously dressed woman glanced at Yun Jian. She didn't know that Yun Jian was related to Xiao Yunju. She continued to point out Xiao Yunju's faults to the female employee. Jie, Yunju called out innocently looking at Yun Jian. Sister? Hearing how Xiao Yunju addressed Yun Jian, the woman who was still pointing out Xiao Yunju's faults, was stunned. She then saw Yun Jian walk forward. Yun Jian didn't say anything. She walked over and grabbed the woman's head. She then fiercely slammed the woman onto the food racks. Yun Jian smashed the food rack with the woman's head, causing the entire rack to shake with a clang. Needless to say, one could imagine how painful it must be for the woman's forehead to be slammed like that. Ah! The woman screamed. The female employee was scared silly. She stared blankly at Yun Jian's actions. Some people who were still shopping in the supermarket stopped and watched the woman scolding Xiao Yunju. Now they saw Yun Jian walk up and grab the woman's head and slam it onto the food racks. The people around them gasped, only to see Yun Jian let go of the woman's hand and tossed her to the ground. Chapter 1201. Yun Jian's words coupled with her actions just now. The people around her were all shocked by her actions. What she did just now, was that something a teenage girl could do? The moment Yun Jian grabbed the woman's hair and slammed her head onto the food rack, the surrounding people almost screamed out loud. In this kind of public place, especially in front of Yun Jian, she was only a teenage girl. How could she do such a shocking thing? The people present were all dumbfounded. The female staff member who was pulled over by the woman just now was so scared that her legs couldn't move. The scene just now was painful just by looking at it, not to mention that Yun Jian directly grabbed her and slapped her. When the female staff member came back to her senses, she realized that something was wrong. She quickly ran to the supermarket's entrance and shouted for help in a panic. Security! Security! Something happened. Come quickly. The woman who pushed Xiao Yunju and arrogantly accused Xiao Yunju just now was slammed onto the ground by Yun Jian. She was in so much pain that she almost suffocated. You hit me. After falling to the ground, the woman rolled a few times and was in so much pain that her whole body was roaring. After rolling a few times on the ground, she reached out to touch her forehead that was grabbed by Yunjian and slammed onto the food rack. She felt that there seemed to be some liquid flowing down from there. When the woman touched her forehead and put her hand in front of her eyes, she was so scared that she almost fainted. The woman even forgot to stand up. Following that, a roar was heard. She wailed like a ghost and howled like a wolf. Ah! Blood! Blood! Ah! After howling a few times, the woman turned to look at Yunjian with hatred. Her piercing gaze looked like she wanted to tear Yunjian into pieces as she howled incessantly. "You're the one who's going to kill me! Murder! She's going to murder! She's going to murder! She's going to murder for no reason!" The woman seemed to think that the matter wasn't serious enough and started shouting. When the surrounding people saw the blood, they all trembled in fear and did not dare to step forward. Some people didn't even dare to look at the blood on the woman's head. In 1999, people's lives were gradually becoming more prosperous. Usually, even if someone's finger was accidentally cut by a kitchen knife and bled, they would be scared half to death. Needless to say, the woman's forehead was slammed by Yunjian onto the food rack. The wound split open and blood gushed out. The woman seemed to have realized the danger she was in. She began to shout, "Do you people have any morals? She hit me just now, and all of you just watched. I'm going to die. I'm dying, there's so much blood. Hurry and send me to the hospital." When Yunjian heard the woman's cries, she was not moved at all. Instead, she slowly took 2 steps towards the woman. This woman did not show any mercy to Xiao Yunzhu just now. When Yunjian took 2 steps towards the woman, an even crazier voice was heard. "Mom!" Yunjian turned her head and saw a girl who looked very similar to the woman. She was dressed similarly and ran towards her. Anyone with a discerning eye could tell that Yunjian was the one who hit the woman. When the girl, who was about the same age as Yunjian, saw the situation, she was completely unreasonable. She picked up a mop from the side and rushed towards Yunjian. "Ah! How dare you hit my mom? You!" Just now, Yunjian had been away from the woman for a long time, so she quickly subdued the woman. The surrounding people would only think that Yunjian was an ordinary girl, just that she was ruthless. Only the girl who had just rushed over had a weapon in her hand, although it was just a mop. But with this mop, the people present felt that Yunjian's beautiful face would definitely be torn open. She was not a secret agent or an assassin. How could she take this ruthless mop? Chapter 1202. This girl was ruthless to the extreme. She saw her mother fall to the ground, her forehead split open, and blood gushed out. At the same time, her mother was still desperately shouting, "It hurts, I'm going to die, I'm going to die." This girl didn't care who was right or wrong, and she didn't care if her mother did anything wrong. This girl was in her youth. She also relied on her good looks to fool around with boys in school, and she also chatted with boys in the underworld. Listening to the boys in the underworld boasting about their power, this girl thought that she was really protected by a powerful character. So whether it was in school or in the underworld, the girl felt that even if she provoked others, she could be protected by the group of boys. Therefore, the girl developed an arrogant and domineering character. Even if the girls in the school dared to say something bad about her, even if it was a joke, she would immediately turn hostile and beat her. Sometimes, she would even lead a group of people to surround a girl and beat her up. However, this kind of behavior, in the girl's view, she felt that it was not shameful to attract the attention of boys. It was in such an environment that she grew up. This girl just saw her mother fall to the ground with her head bleeding. She didn't care who was right or wrong at all. After rushing to the side, she picked up the mop and rushed toward Yunjian. At this moment, the girl had already come to Yunjian with the mop. As she ran, she shouted a series of roars like flowing water. "Go to hell! You dare to hit my mother! You go to hell!" While shouting, the girl had already stood in front of Yunjian with the mop. At the same time, the surrounding group of supermarket onlookers were looking forward to seeing a bloody scene. The girl had already smashed the mop on Yunjian's head. A few seconds before this, the female staff who ran out to call for help had hurried back with a few security guards. But they just saw the scene of the girl smashing the mop on Yunjian. The group of onlookers all gasped. Someone exclaimed a few seconds ago, "What's the matter? That girl is finished." Oh hey, that mop, unless she has the ability of an agent killer in the movie. Otherwise, It's a pity for that beautiful face. As soon as someone spoke, someone behind exclaimed and pointed to Yun Jian over there. Look that! Everyone around raised their eyes and looked over. Yun Jian, however, stood still on the spot. The mop in the girl's hand had been smashed fiercely toward Yun Jian's head. Just as the mop was about to hit the top of Yun Jian's head, it was about to hit her head hard. Yun Jian looked forward, she suddenly stretched out her left hand, and she didn't even look at the trajectory of the mop above her head. Just like that, in front of everyone, it was as if she had eyes on the top of her head. She accurately stretched out her left hand and caught the mop that was smashing down at her with great inertia. When the mop was swung, the force was very strong, but Yun Jian didn't even look at the mop. She just blindly stretched out her hand and caught the mop. This behavior made the customers who were standing around and watching the show, as well as the female staff member who had called several security guards back, stunned. But just as everyone was stunned, Yun Jian had already pulled the mop, and directly pulled the girl who was holding the other end of the mop, who was already dumbfounded, towards her. The girl didn't stand firm, and after being pulled by Yun Jian, her whole body swayed back and forth, and she fell directly to the ground. At this moment, Yun Jian had already stepped on the mop pole fiercely. Gotcha! In the next second, the mop pole was easily broken in half by Yun Jian. The girl's hand was under the mop pole, and Yun Jian's step was like torture to the girl. Ah! 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 The girl wanted to retract her hand, but Yun Jian's strength was strong, and she couldn't retract her hand at all. Suddenly, screams spread throughout the whole place. Yun Jian's aloofness and ferocious capability struck fear into those who were present. Chapter 1203. This little girl must be a martial artist. Although some people objected to the words of the person who was obviously obsessed with the assassins in the movies, no one objected to the fact that Yun Jian was capable. After all, her strength was displayed in front of everyone. That kind of strength. Let alone smashing Yun Jian's head with a mop, the girl couldn't even get close to Yun Jian's side. Gotcha, gotcha. However, at this moment, the frightening sound of bones breaking rang out once again. Everyone turned to look again when they heard the noise, only to see Yun Jian stepping on the mop pole. Although the mop pole was broken, she could still control the girl's hand that was pinned to the ground by the mop pole by stepping on it. As for the gotcha gotcha sound, it was the sound of the girl's hand being pressed to the ground by Yun Jian with the mop pole. The bones in her fingers were broken. The girl desperately wanted to retract her hand, but she couldn't. She was in so much pain that she was sweating all over. She desperately begged for mercy. Let go. Let go. I was wrong. Let go quickly. This was a begging sound, but also an order. Yun Jian sneered, but the force under her feet became even stronger. You're not wrong. It's your mother who's wrong. She pushed my brother just now. Not only did she not apologize, she even framed my brother for causing trouble here. However, you'll have to suffer for her. Yun Jian sneered. At the same time, she glanced at the woman who was sitting on the ground in a sorry state. This woman was obviously the girl's mother. The two of them looked exactly the same. After Yun Jian finished speaking, she exerted more force under her feet and stepped harder on the mop pole. Ah! Mom, I'm going to die. It hurts. Please forgive me, I was wrong, I was wrong. The girl was suppressed. No matter how hard she tried, she couldn't retract her hand that was being stepped on by Yun Jian under the mop pole. Because of the pain, the girl began to blabber and beg for mercy. Min Min! Min Min! When the woman saw her daughter being stepped on by Yun Jian like this, all the cells in her body trembled. At this moment, the woman regretted pushing Xiao Yunzhu the most. If he didn't treat Xiao Yunzhu like this, there wouldn't be this scene at all. I was wrong, I was wrong. It was my fault just now. I pushed your brother. Not only did I push your brother, I even framed your brother for causing trouble here. It's all my fault. Please let my daughter go. The woman covered the blood that was slowly flowing from her forehead. She had been arrogant just now, but now she didn't dare to say a word. She could only desperately beg Yun Jian for mercy. A woman could beat and scold other people's children at will, but when it came to her own daughter, she doted on her to the bottom of her heart. Now that she saw Yun Jian treating her precious baby like this, the woman felt that her heart was about to stop beating. She desperately shouted at Yun Jian and begged. The surrounding group of people were dumbfounded. At first, everyone thought that Yun Jian had inexplicably rushed up and hit the girl. But until now, when they heard the woman's confession, they realized that it was this woman who bullied her brother first. It was understandable that Yun Jian was so angry just now. After all, anyone who saw an adult bullying a child would feel ashamed. From the corner of her eye, she saw Xiao Yunju looking at her with trembling eyes. Yun Jian knew that she was too cruel in front of Xiao Yunju, so she let go of her foot after hearing the woman's apology. "Get lost," Yun Jian said coldly, her eyes glaring at the woman. Chapter 1204. After Yun Jian's first sentence, the woman and the girl heaved a sigh of relief. This little girl was too scary. She was too scary. Her methods were actually so ruthless. She was so cruel that she didn't seem human. Just as she was about to escape, she heard Yun Jian's voice again. Hearing that Yun Jian only wanted her to leave the potato chips behind, she could leave. The woman heaved a sigh of relief. If she hadn't been greedy and wanted to eat potato chips with this flavor, none of this would have happened. The woman realized that the blood on her forehead had stopped gushing out, so she stopped covering it. She rushed to her shopping cart, reached out and took out the 5 bags of potato chips, then ran back to Yun Jian. The woman put all the potato chips in Yun Jian's arms as if avoiding the plague, then she turned and rushed to her daughter, grabbed her daughter's hand and ran to the door. This little girl was too scary. The way she looked at her just now, it was as if she wanted to kill someone. The woman dragged her daughter out of the supermarket quickly, even abandoning the things in the shopping cart. Just as she ran to the security guards, one of the security guards stopped the woman, wanting her to cooperate with him to solve the mess. After all, Yun Jian had hit someone, and the woman had pushed Xiao Yunju before. After this, they would probably check the surveillance cameras in the supermarket and hand it over to the police. In short, there would be a lot of procedures. However, the woman seemed to be scared by Yun Jian. She grabbed her daughter, ignoring the injury on her head and her daughter's broken hand. She just wanted to leave this place. Away from Yun Jian, such a scary person. "Madam, please stay and cooperate." Just as the security guard said this, the woman continued to run out in a panic, pushing away the security guard who wanted to stop her. "No, no, no, I want to go home, I want to leave. Get out of my way." With that, the woman pushed away the security guard who was blocking her, pulled her daughter and rushed out. She would rather not have Yun Jian compensate her. Now she just wanted to leave this place. Because Yun Jian was too scary. Yun Jian couldn't help but smile coldly as she watched the woman flee with the other girls. Since the woman herself didn't care about it, the security guards naturally didn't like to meddle in other people's business. Thus, this matter was left unsettled. At this moment, Yun Jian retracted her gaze and walked towards Xiao Yunju. The surrounding people knew that Yun Jian did not beat people up for no reason. In addition, they had just seen Yun Jian's strange skills. At this moment, some people wanted to stay and see what she was going to do next. Yun Jian walked up to Xiao Yunju and gently stroked his hair. She paused for a moment before asking, "Are you afraid?" She clearly saw Xiao Yunju's body tremble. Xiao Yunju looked at Yun Jian, obviously a little scared. He shook his head then nodded. "Sister, I don't feel pain." "Sister, what you did to them just now, isn't it too much?" Xiao Yunju didn't know anything. He just asked according to his own thoughts. Yun Jian, who was standing in front of Xiao Yunju, smiled and said, "Xiao Yunju will understand when he grows up." Yun Jian looked into the distance when she said this. Then, a faint smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. It was so strange that it made people feel a little scared. Chapter 1205. Yun Jian didn't know that Xiao Yunju wouldn't understand if she told him this so early, but Yun Jian had to let him know one thing. People would only look down on themselves if they were strong. When Xiao Yunju grew up, even if he had a powerful sister. But what if one day she was no longer around? Who could he ask to help him? Xiao Yunju shook his head. He definitely didn't understand Yun Jian's words. However, the people standing around the supermarket were shocked when they heard Yun Jian's words to her brother. The people present didn't expect that this young girl would have such a mature mind. Not only that, but she also used such a serious tone to teach her brother. The people around couldn't help but sigh at the fact that a young girl could realize this. However, there were also people who silently mocked Yun Jian in their hearts. How powerful did she think she was? It was as if she had really experienced something incredible. However, if these people knew that Yun Jian had been trained by the organization as an agent in her previous life, there would only be a handful of people left. Out of the hundreds of agents, only a handful would be left alive in this world. The weak would be eliminated. If the hundreds of agents died because they were too weak, they would not be able to survive. Those people who were secretly mocking Yun Jian in their hearts definitely wouldn't think so. As a person who survived by licking blood from the muzzle of a knife and gun, her understanding must be different. Xiao Yunju scratched his head. He thought for 2 seconds, then pouted and said to Yun Jian, "Sister, I think I understand a little." Yun Jian nodded slightly. Then, she handed 3 bags of potato chips to Xiao Yunju and the other 2, keeping 2 for herself. She rubbed Xiao Yunju and the other 2's heads and said, "Go find the snacks you want to eat." Xiao Yunju and the other 2 immediately ran to find snacks to eat on the trip after hearing Yun Jian's words. Because they were leaving for the trip tomorrow, Xiao Yunju and the other 2 were extremely excited. On the way home, the 3 of them held each other's hands. Xiao Yunju held Duanli's hand, and Duanli held Duanya's hand. Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand in one hand, and the 3 babies bought a big bag of snacks from the supermarket in the other hand. Qin Yiru was at home preparing the daily necessities for the trip tomorrow, and Si wasn't at home. So Yun Jian brought Xiao Yunju and the other 2 to the supermarket to buy things. Now that they were carrying a big bag home, they had just reached home. Yun Jian saw Qin Yiru's butts half sat on the sofa, with her hand in the travel bag. She was fiddling with the things to bring tomorrow. There was a person dressed like a rich lady standing in front of Qin Yiru. Yang's wife and Qin's, a few family friends' business, a few S's and Shiti misses. Yang's husband was a businessman. His business was very big, and her family was very rich. Mrs. Yang herself was a woman with a very good temperament. She was a real rich wife. However, Mrs. Yang was different from other rich wives. Qin Yiru came from the countryside. Knowing this, Mrs. Yang didn't dislike Qin Yiru. Instead, she became very good friends with Qin Yiru. The reason why Mrs. Yang became good friends with Qin Yiru was that Mrs. Yang was also good friends with Dong Wan. For the trip tomorrow, Yun Jian's family and Mrs. Yang's family would be traveling together. Dong Wan had to give up because she was busy. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.